Oh, thank you, you know. I can always count on you to bring me all the literature.
Good afternoon. We will call to order the regular meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, April 27th. Please, if you would, silence all of your cell phones. City Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Owen.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sachs.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Clody.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we will begin in just a moment with an invocation, and then we'll follow that with the pledge as we stand and before Pastor Carter begins. If you'd join us, though, in a moment today to remember someone that we lost, Ann McFall, who served the city in the not city of New Smyrna, but in a county capacity as supervisor of elections and many different roles in this community as a servant leader. So if you would join us in remembering the McFall family today for just a brief moment of silence. And we'll follow that with Pastor Pete Carter, who will lead us in an invocation, and then we'll remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Most holy, most gracious, and most kind God, it is once again that we've come under your care to discuss those business decisions that will make our city a better place for those who live here, that visit, those that enjoy those things that offer in this city. We ask that you continue to be with each and every one that serves, that they might continue to serve in a capacity that will bring glory and honor to your name. We ask a special prayer tonight that you would look upon the McFall family in their time of most difficulty, that you would strengthen them on every side, that they will continue to be able to look up to you, that they might continue to draw strength from one another as they continue to live their days. We ask now that you continue to bless us and bless our every endeavors, and we shall continue to bless thy name forevermore. In your matchless name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Khaled, any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Mayor. We have one change. Item under consent agenda 6K. Consider the approval of the Economic Development Business Retention Expansion Memorandum of Understanding between the City of New Smyrna Beach and Volusia County Government. We would like to move that to the 25th of May, please.
Okay. If you were here for item 6K on the consent agenda, that item has been moved to May 25th, if there's no objections. All right, we have a couple of proclamations and then some presentations. So let me come to these proclamations. Do I have... All right. So the first, y'all can join me. I just don't like to be alone up here, so I always need somebody up here with me. All right, so the first is proclaiming April 30th, 2021 as, there's Scott. Claiming April as Fair Housing Month in the city of New Smyrna Beach. I'm joined here by representatives from the local realty community and members of the Realtors Association. So it says, whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. Whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing. Geez, that's a tongue twister. In their communities. And whereas the City of New Smyrna Beach is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all, and whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities, and whereas more than 50 years after the passage, discrimination persists and in many communities remain segregated. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunities are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. Now therefore, I, Russ Owen, Mayor of the City of New Smyrna Beach, on behalf of the New Smyrna Beach City Commission, do hereby declare month of April 2021 as Fair Housing Month in the City of New Smyrna Beach, as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promoting appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of New Smyrna Beach. And thank you to the Board of Realtors for all of you all do in this capacity. So, on behalf of the city, he's gonna take a picture right over there.
I didn't have a mask in the room. One available there, so you gotta take pictures. I apologize.
Thank you all. Okay, one other proclamation. This is declaring April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in New Smyrna Beach. It says, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. Whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And trees can reduce the erosion of our topsoil by wind and water. They cut heating and cooling costs. They moderate the temperature. They clean the air. They produce life-giving oxygen, and they provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, Russ Owen, Mayor of the City of New Smyrna, on behalf of the Commission, do proclaim Friday, April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day. And I urge all residents and visitors to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And I further urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And if we have Faith Miller here, sorry, I should have called you up, Faith. Faith works, is the manager and works in this regard with the city. We have a tree bank, so anytime, many of you may not know this, but sometimes in development, trees are taken down. We have a tree bank that is contributed back to, and those trees are replaced, usually and multiplied. So, depending on the size of the tree, goes into a tree bank, and then those are planted throughout the city. And then once a year, we have an event, usually on or around Arbor Day, where, don't give me, are we doing it? Or, she's giving me the look. We didn't talk about this before. All right. We're not this year. We normally do an event on Arbor Day where we give out a lot of trees and they're planted. I have one in my yard in Magnolia that was planted on this day. So thank you and your team for all you do for trees in our city. All right. No, that's all right. We're going to do it again. It's not going away. We just pause it for COVID. All right. We have a couple of other items from the fire department. Chief, we have a recognition and then some promotions. It's going to be joined by Chief. He's going to take it from here.
Well, thank you for your time this evening, Commissioner. I'd like to recognize first, we're going to recognize a high academic achievement within the fire department. The Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Fire Administration have a program that is called the Executive Fire Officer Program. That program is a 4-year process with applied research projects that go throughout those 4 years. Chris Diamond, one of our battalion chiefs, which is basically a shift commander. For those of you who are not familiar with our structure, we have 3 battalion chiefs that are shift commanders. He completed the Executive Fire Officer Program. This is the highest academic award giving by anybody in the fire service from the Department of Homeland Security. The applied research projects that he completed throughout his coursework were utilized by the city, by the fire department first, and then those projects, one of them being health and wellness, actually expanded beyond the fire department to a health and wellness program throughout the city, which was also adopted by neighboring cities all the way up to Palm Coast. That project was crafted by one individual, the Chris Diamond, who completed the Executive Fire Officer program, as well as continuity of operation plans and other things that were part of the applied research project. I'd like to bring Chris up to award him the certificate of graduation from this program. Again, this 4-year program is the highest academic award given by the U.S. Fire Administration. I'm going to give it to you right now. Got any words for us?
I'd like to get my kids and my mom up here.
Of course.
Come on, buddy. That's
there.
you. You're my son. Congratulations, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Are we getting
Why are you slacking on me? What's that? This is my daughter Lauren, this is my son Caleb, and this is my mom. Thank you very much.
So on top of that, we also had a couple of vacancies that created promotions within the fire department. Those of you who aren't familiar with our testing process for both the position of lieutenant and the position of driver engineer is a pretty arduous process. The members of the department that participate in the testing spend months of studying, months of drilling, months of doing hands-on training with fire pump apparatus, driving. They drive thousands of, or hundreds of miles, not thousands, but hundreds of miles, spend hundreds of hours pumping for the driver's position, as well as just an immense amount of studying and workload for the position of lieutenant. This evening we're going to bring up two gentlemen. Cody Curran, who's going to be promoted to lieutenant. He's a driver engineer now. He's getting promoted to lieutenant. And Jeremy McElfresh is the firefighter who we're going to be promoting to driver engineer. I'm going to have them come on up, as well as Jeremy's wife Kim is here, I think, to pin him. Usually when we get promoted within the fire department, we get a new badge, a new, either a new emblem or new color on it, depending on what the position is. And as is traditional, we're going to go ahead and have those pinned on the gentleman in recognition of their promotion. All right. So Cody, like I said, Cody Curran, he was serving as a driver engineer. He's now getting promoted to lieutenant. Lieutenant is basically in charge of a fire company within the department. We only have 12 of them total, so go ahead and let him have it. And then Jeremy McElfresh was a firefighter. He's getting promoted to the position of driver. That'll also give him the opportunity to not be on the ambulance for a while, which he appreciates that. Kim. Jeremy also has two babies at home. One's there and one is missing somewhere. Have you seen this one can't move. It's like brand new, so. Oh, way in the back. All right. Come on up, Jeremy. Let's do it. Yeah, if you're comfortable.
Okay, special congratulations to those two and their families and to all of the public safety folks here with us tonight. Thank you so much for your service. Okay, next item up is public participation. This is your chance to address the commission. We'll have a 3-minute time limit. It is right there on that screen. If you'd honor that out of respect for your neighbors and others that would like to speak. But this is your chance to address the commission on any item on your heart and mind. We may not reply to you right away. This is your time, so we're taking notes. We're getting things, and then we'll come back to items as the meeting progresses, or talk about it later with staff, and someone will contact you. So, with that, if you would introduce yourself, give your name and address for the record, and then we'll begin. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi. I'm Susan Prophet, 2700 North Peninsula Avenue, Unit 212, New Smyrna Beach, Florida. I've been a resident since 1988, and I come here to ask that the city look at adding more pickleball courts to what we have already. I am an avid player, not great, but I really like it. And my experience has been that there just aren't enough courts for the demand. I saw that, according to something I saw online, in 2020 we had over 29,000 people here with a growth rate of 2.41% annually. And you can just, you all know the numbers, but you can see all the housing going up and the demand for this sport, and it encompasses all ages and for the benefit of them physically and mentally. My friends and I often start at Detweiler, and they're too crowded, so then we'll go over to Pettis, and that'll be too crowded, so we'll end up in Port Orange, where we know there are 8 dedicated pickleball courts for us. So, we'll make that drive, even though it didn't seem right. But anyway, that's the reality of the situation. It would be great to have more courts. Covered or indoor would even be more beneficial, or in addition to. I did meet with David Ray yesterday at Detweiler Park. He was nice enough to meet me there. And we brainstormed about doing some changes there if possible. And he's going to introduce those things, either adding more on some little land there between the parking and the court, or reconfiguring the courts. Perhaps there's some land by Pettis that perhaps could be used to build more courts. And if anybody has any other ideas about, where to put them, I think it would be an advantage to residents and visitors alike. It's a healthy thing, as I say, for all ages. And I have more statistics here, but I don't want to go over my time. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up. Yes, ma'am. Come in.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Dr. Abigail Adams. This is my husband, Dr. Ben Adams, and we live at 1621 South Riverside Drive. And I guess he's been a resident since 1981 when he was born here, but I just moved here 13 years ago. We're here tonight because we're disappointed and upset learning about this law that only limits a single-family dock to 1,000 square feet, which includes the walkway. We live on South Riverside Drive along with many of our neighbors, and our dock has to be a certain length in order to access the channel in deep water. So what makes us so upset is that if a hurricane were to hit our dock again for the 3rd time, we would not be able to rebuild and repair our existing dock, which is well over 1,000 square feet. I think our dock's about 467 square feet. The platform itself is very modest, and it just serves to be a boat ramp or a boat launch. So what we are begging is that you consider amending the law to not include the walkway within that 1,000 square feet. We do not want to build a monstrosity at the end of our dock. We just want to have our right, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a federal agency, they state that as a landowner, we have the right to access navigable water. And when we built our house 5 years ago, it had an existing dock that was fully permitted and was approved by the Florida Department of Environmental Protections Agency. So we would like to know why you voted down this law. Is it an environmental reason? Because if so, the DEP already stated that we could have the dock. There's no harm to the environment. Is this because of the length of certain docks in New Smyrna Beach? Well, we have the right to access that water. So we're just asking that you strongly reconsider this decision, because we would be devastated if our kids couldn't fish off the dock anymore and if we couldn't have access to the channel. And it's our right. And I don't understand really why the city has any say. Like, is that even legal? I don't know. I'm just an ER doctor. I'm not a lawyer. But you just need to know that this is a really big problem, and it's a really big problem for a lot of my neighbors that live on Riverside Drive, and I'm sure some people that live over on North Beach too. And all of a sudden, a couple weeks ago, we were notified of this law, and we would be really unhappy if, hurricane whatever hit and we couldn't rebuild. And that's why we moved here. That's why we built here, so that we could enjoy the water. And we're here to serve the community as a dentist and an ER doctor, and we just ask that you strongly reconsider and amend that law to exclude the docks from that 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
Just say one thing.
Sure.
In my comments at the end of the meeting, which you may not be here for, I was one of the 3 people who voted against the ordinance that was proposed. Yes, you have a difficult situation, but there are different neighborhoods with different conditions, and I'm going to be asking later that we reconsider that vote, because I've suggested some changes, and I know the staff is working on it, and hopefully that'll meet the approval of everyone. But thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Colodi. I appreciate that. Thank you,
Yes.
Commission. We
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you all. Yes, sir. I saw you all headed up next.
She'll start that clock. My name is Ken Parker, and we own the home at 2509 Hill Street. And I'm here tonight really to ask the council to engage our Volusia County Council in an effort to reopen the discussion for their parking lot project for 16th Avenue. I'm not sure which of y'all were around or have been around, but 2 years ago, our own Commissioner, Deb Denny's, was a driving force in creating a parking lot in our residential neighborhood. And unfortunately, I have 2 years of history I'm trying to summarize here, but we're just asking for your help for them to reopen that discussion, because the 2 people that spearheaded it, Commissioner Denny's and Chairman Kelly, are gone. It was a 4-3 vote. They decided to move forward, but I'm going to tell you the summary of it. The good news is you can listen to the hour-long discussion that's still on the county website, but they approved a $1 million spend to build a paved parking lot that achieved 10 parking spaces beachside. And to do that, they would remove 80% of natural Florida vegetation, 5 gopher tortoises. In addition to that, they're going to put a gravity wall that's 6 or 7 feet high, 7 feet from our house, which we are confident is going to compromise our structure. Okay? You would think that would get somebody's attention to have a discussion about the impact of that parking lot, because they had 2 options that solved their problem that costs considerably less and had no impact to the current environment or our home, but they don't want to talk about it. We have met with our new council person, Mr. Robbins. We've met with the chair, Mr. Brower. One meeting went okay, one did not. But here is in my opinion, the sad part of the whole thing, that our government can justify spending $1 million for 10 parking spaces, which to me is just a bad use of public funds. Secondly, we as a citizen who pay a significant amount of taxes being beachside have spent personally $81,000 to date trying to get information from the county on how their wall is going to impact our home. $81,000, real money. And all they've given us to date is a proposed parking plan and a copy of an FDOT spec that has no impact on how they're going to install it, which is just ludicrous to us. So we're just asking for you to bring it up with our council person and the chairman, that at least bring it up for discussion.
Okay.
Fair?
That's fair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Diane Parker. I'm Ken's wife, and I'm going to maybe put this in a little different perspective for you. This has been going on for 2 years, and one of the original things that the county said was that they were including the stakeholders in the discussion. Well, we're a stakeholder, and we have not been included in any discussion. And unfortunately, the way we had to insert ourselves into the discussion was to hire an attorney. When this started, our children were 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. My husband, we found out about the meeting and the proposed project from a neighbor. He drove down from Georgia with our then 12-year-old son to speak at the meeting. There was, interestingly enough, no public discussion when the vote was made, and that was our 12-year-old's introduction to the political system. It's been a crazy year for politics, and this year we had the opportunity to speak with our 5 children again about what it means to be a politician and what it means to be a servant leader, which is interesting that you mentioned that, Mayor Owen. But on the Senate floor after the riots, there was a politician who spoke about being a servant leader and what that means. He talked about leading in the community where people are playing Little League and going out to dinner. It's not about sitting behind a desk. It's about engaging with your constituents. We are constituents, and we have reached out to you. We may have spoken with some of you, but that was the end. No one has made an effort to understand the options, to understand the impact to our family, to understand the impact to the environment. We made an investment to purchase. We have tried to reestablish the dunes in front of our property. We paid to have dune fences put into place because of the erosion on the beach. We need your help. We need you to step from outside, from out of behind the desk, and to engage with us, and to engage with what's happening in our community. And it may be a county decision to build that parking lot, but the city has to approve that. And the city has to maintain the narrow one-way road into that area. You have to pay for the police officers to police the parking in that area. We're asking you to be a servant leader, to engage with us and to show our 5 children something different. They've gone to the meetings. One of them has spoken at the meeting. There's gopher tortoises on the property. We need more. We need more from our representatives. We need more from you, and we are asking you to stand up and be something different, to engage with us, and to help us and our community to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yes, ma'am. Come ahead.
Katie Lothian. I'm here with my husband, Bill. 801 Faulkner Street. And I'd like to request, as I have discussed with Jason and Michael, improvements for the sake of safety of pedestrians, the sidewalks in the area between Wayne and Canal, from North River Drive to pretty much US 1. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic in this area, and the sidewalks are in very poor shape. This is a serious safety issue, as many of the people in this area are elderly or young with baby strollers. And many of the sidewalks are uneven, cracked, or non-existent. They A lot of the damage was caused by hurricane cleanup with heavy equipment picking up debris. They actually parked themselves on the sidewalk and cracked it. My husband and I walk daily in this area, and we have seen the damage being done, and we've seen sidewalks being removed and not replaced. And I feel very strongly about this because I don't want to get hit by a car. And I don't want somebody else falling, myself included. These are hazards, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. I also request that you might consider looking also at the roadways. I do appreciate Michael's input in putting in the sidewalk between Faulkner and North River Drive, running along Wayne. That's a major improvement, but more needs to be done, including possible curbs or other issues to prevent traffic from encroaching into these sidewalk areas. And so that's my speed. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Any others? Yes, sir. And ma'am.
My name is Peter McReynolds, and this is my wife Susan. We're from 1625 South Riverside Drive in New Smyrna. My interest here today is the 1,000 square foot limit to residential dock projecting into the Mosquito Lagoon. Article 8, Supplementary Regulation, Section 803.04 states the regulations pertaining to boats, docks and terminal platforms, covered boat slips, mooring poles, and other boat storage and docking facilities. Subsection A states that docks are permitted in accordance with Volusia County Manatee Protection Plan as an accessory use. These would be deemed standard facilities and are subject to the following restrictions. Number 1, 2 slips, covered or not, single or double, would be 360 square feet. A double would be 600 square feet. Section D, number 5, states that maximum footprint of dock structure, including mooring pole area and boat docking space, not to exceed 1,000 square feet. Does this include walking area to get to docking space? Does this include walking area between docking spaces? Does it matter if the dock space is covered or not? What I want the hearing body to do is reconsider the prior vote, reevaluating the decision-making criteria for the vote of the 1,000 square foot rule, seeking relief of the 1,000 foot rule, exempting all access to reaching boat slips, both from the shore to the slips, including walking area between and or up to boat slips. Our property is in a cove area, and it would be a little more than 500 feet from the shoreline to water deep enough for a boat, which would mean for the 1,000 square feet, we would probably have to get a couple of 2x6s and put them together and just build a plank. So it doesn't seem to be practical. I'm looking for your consideration on reevaluating this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as you heard earlier, I think Commissioner Colodi plans to bring this item back to the board. So, any others for public participation tonight? Going once. Yes, ma'am.
Cindy Radigan and Terra Trails. I'm back again. Last fall, I came to one of these meetings, and I was told in a short period of time that there was proposed or promised workshops were going to be held to address once again the flight training noise and aggravation issues that have been ongoing since 2005. I was told that there was going to be a workshop in October. In October, I was told there was going to be a workshop in November. In November, I was told the workshop was going to be put off till December. Then in December, because of the holidays, I was told it was being put off till January. Come January, I was told it was going to be put off till February because you were dealing with homelessness in January. Then in February, the whole idea of having a workshop was dropped altogether. Flight training and the noise and aggravation of it over our home and our neighborhood has been an ongoing issue since 2005. After the tower was built, the patterns were changed, the runways were upgraded, lighting and pappies were put on the runways, and the county residents have suffered the brunt of it to the north and most especially to the west of the airport. Due to some very disgruntled flight instructors, due to my ongoing efforts to get some relief, and their friends and other friends of New Smyrna Beach Airport, they've been targeting the roof of my house, and the school's unwillingness to adjust and shift the patterns. There is a need to hold a series of noise abatement meetings and or workshops and some negotiations put forth to change the patterns. Due to the unending stress, air pollution impacting our well-being, if the city refuses to enforce its right to use the proprietor's exception to enforce some level of relief, I must insist that the city install noise-canceling equipment and sky monitoring cameras on the roof of our home, and we demand that the schools to avoid flying over our property at any time.
Okay.
I am still expecting that the city commission is going to make some effort to hold a workshop and address this issue. There are many of us to the west of the airport that are still dealing with this after 15 years.
Thank you. Any others for public participation? Yes, sir.
I'm Mr. Radigan. I'm from Scarlet Trail as well. This was my wife. We've been coming here for 15 years asking you guys to do something about the noise out at the airport. You guys have done nothing. Nothing at all. You know, I guess you just don't really care about your residents around the airport. It is an issue. It is a problem. You guys need to step up and do something.
Thank you. Any others for public participation? All right. We will close public participation. The next item up is the consent agenda. Yeah, we'll go to consent agenda. There's 20 items on the consent agenda. I'm sorry, there's 19. We pulled item 6K already. Gentlemen, I'm going to propose a slight tweak tonight. I'm going to offer you all the option, and we're going to see how this goes. There's times when we just want to make a quick comment, such as thanking staff for their efforts on an item. Rather than polling that item to do that, having to have a separate motion, et cetera, I'll ask as I ask for items to pull. If you also just had a quick comment, feel free to make that then. If you had anything in depth you wanted other commissioners to comment, then you would need to still pull that item. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to get there? Just a little more efficiency if we can achieve it. So we'll begin with Vice Mayor Sachs and work our way this way. Anything to pull or any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just comments.
Sure.
On item 6I and item 6O. And I'll approve those. No need for a vote.
Okay. And I guess what I was meaning is you can literally just, if you want to just make those comments now, and then
It's up to
If you
you
don't
guys.
plan to pull them, just go ahead and make your quick comment, and then we'll just keep moving on.
Yes, all
Yeah.
right, I'll do that. On 6I, the approval of contract with the Giabi Consulting, I would have, this is just, I'm pontificating here. I would have loved that the county step up and help us pay for this consulting firm. It seems that the county's beach is causing us quite a bit of angst in our city with traffic. I hope we can mitigate that with enforcement. I see that as the only way forward, but I'll approve this contract and hope that Giabi Consulting can do something for our citizens.
Okay.
And on
O,
I just want to share, your city is trying to improve the water quality in our Indian River Lagoon. Hence the lagoon, Mosquito Lagoon, Northern Indian River. We finally, after 12 years, have been able to come up with a reasonable assurance plan. This plan will have Oak Hill, Edgewater, and New Smyrna Beach joined together, pool our resources, and build hardware that will increase the quality of the water. That water is currently impaired. It did take a long time. Normally, government does take a long time in its processes, and I'm very proud that we can hopefully keep this reassurance plan going between our three cities, and someday we'll have clear water again, not brown and green water. By the way, thank you to Kyle, Jesse, and everybody that's involved in engineering that project.
Okay.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Any items to pull or comments, Commissioner McGurk?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Hartman, any items to pull or comments?
I have a couple comments. 6E, that with the sidewalk cafe, it wasn't specific, but we made sure that any plantings or tables would be outside that 4-foot walk area.
Okay.
So it would not impact pedestrian traffic. The vehicles that are on the purchase thing were already approved in the previous budget cycle. So that's nothing new that we haven't talked about. And then my other concern was with the Marine Discovery thing. If you don't know, there's going to be a meeting on the Barracuda Bridge. I think it's either the 3rd or 5th or 7th, May 4th? 4th. May 4th, there'll be a meeting on the Barracuda Bridge. And some of that concern, my concern there was that if the MDC is going to have an event over there, it's not impacted by what the UC is going to do with the water main replacement and stuff like that. The staff is working closely with the UC to make sure that everybody's aware of their time schedule also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Colodi, any items to pull or just quick comments?
Comments on 2.
Okay.
On 6E, which is the sidewalk agreement, which I intend to support, is we're adding parking requirements. We're adding the need for parking requirements, yet our ordinances right now do not address that. They allow this type of expansion of use to go on. We're about to enter into a parking study, which hopefully will address those issues for future applications.
Okay.
6I, my comment is, I did not want to approve this the last time around, because even though it was a valid contract, piggybacked on another town's desires to enter into a contract, we did not have specific information as to the quality of the firm, the type of work that they have performed since that time. I've looked into it. I've had information provided to me by the city manager, and I'm more than happy to support it.
Okay. I had no items to pull or comments. So with that, gentlemen, we didn't have to pull any items on the consent agenda, so this may work. Well, we may give that another shot. So do I have a motion to approve all items except for item K that was pulled by the manager?
So moved.
Second.
I heard Commissioner Hartman with the second, so we had a motion and a second. City Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for indulging me. 7A, Resolution 10-21, authorize amendments to the anti-dilution test provisions in the TD Bank and Interstate Bank loan agreements. City manager, or I don't know who's covering this one.
Yes, Mayor, this is regarding our bank notes for the $14 million. This is to ensure that our new loan would not affect the two loans that we have existing right now. One we have in 2005 and the other one in 2016, I think. So with that, the staff is recommending approval on the agreement.
Okay. And I can tell you just in broad strokes, this is a fairly, we had to do this at Riddle in my previous employer on numerous different occasions. As you restructure debt or take on debt or even retire debt, you often have to look back at your current debt and look at all the covenants and make any tweaks needed in those covenants as it relates to this new debt and how they all kind of fit together. So it's a fairly routine measure. So do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 10-21?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution was adopted. Item 7B.
I have Mark, our financial advisor, Mike Galvin. He'll
Okay.
give you a brief, and then we'll have answer the questions.
Mayor,
Right.
Commissioners, for the record, my name is Mark Galvin with Hilltop Securities. This is the next step. I've been in front of you a couple times. We talked about the overall structure of the financing. Well, we went out for RFPs, and we received 3 very good RFP responses from 3 banks. What we have today is that this is the first step. With your approval, we'll be coming back in front of you in 2 weeks where you go ahead to approve the final documents, and approximately 2 days later, the line of credit will be open and you'll be ready to go ahead and spend money based for your projects. The 3 deals were our banks. One was Key Bank, one was Truist, and one Regions. All of them are variable rate. The Regions Bank had the lowest overall interest rate, and we recommend that to the city.
Okay. If you would, just for clarity, for full disclosure for everyone, on the agenda and in the package, we talk about this waiver of conflict. Can you just touch on why we're having to do that and explain that? Or do you want Carrie to do that?
So Florida bar rules, they have potential conflicts of interest. So if I represent Mr. Colodi in a transaction, and in that particular transaction, the other side, say it's Regions Bank, per Florida bar rules, I can't represent Regions Bank on a different matter without informing both clients and letting them waive that conflict. So Regions Bank has already waived the conflict. They are represented by our bond counsel on a line of credit in a different city, Punta Gorda. Completely unrelated transactions. It's standard to waive this type of potential conflict. So that's what that is. And we would need that separate vote prior to awarding to Regions.
2 separate things, okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, Carrie explained it well, but basically the waiver of conflict is BMO, our bond counsel, the premier bond counsel, by the way, in the state. I believe they did a lot of work all over the state. Happens to also represent Regions. Regions was selected in this case due to the lowest interest rate possible. And so we have to just clean that up to make sure we're in full thing. But again, they don't represent us. They represent us purely in this case, but they represented Regions as it dealt with Punta Gorda, I guess it was. So do I have a motion to approve the waiver of conflict? This is just that part, and then we'll move to the next part.
So moved.
Make that motion?
Okay, I heard a motion from the Vice Mayor, and
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Hartman. And City Clerk, if you'd call the roll on that, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now, do we have a motion on the approval towards this RFP 7-21 to, as staff suggested, the Regions Bank?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, item C, Turnbull Creek Land Preservation. Brian, I believe, has a report for us.
Yes, this is an update of the Turnbull Creek Land Preservation Program, and our goal this evening is to let the commission know where we're at and obtain some strategic direction on where we move forward with this program. Kelly, if you could please pull up that exhibit, the overall target parcel map, if you could just zoom out a little bit, please, just a little bit more, thank you. Just a quick reminder that the total bond referendum was $15 million. 2 purchases have been completed to date. The first was the Turnbull Trace property, 151 acres for $8.94 million in 2019. City was reimbursed $3.576 million for that transaction for a net cost of $5.365 million. That is the property to the north of the area that you see on the map up here. It is here. So then we kind of took it, that's fine, right? And then we took it to the next phase. We looked at about 100 parcels. We grouped them into priority areas, with the red being priority 1, the green priority 2, and a third area priority 3, which is way at the very north off of Turnbull Bay Road. We completed last year the purchase of 10 acres of the C-Star properties, what we call, for $1.2 million. So total funds remaining as of today are approximately $8.4 million. So the focus of staff and our consultant, the North Florida Land Trust, has been on land purchases, not conservation easements. We've run into some challenges on our pursuits of the remaining priority 1 parcels as well as the priority 2 parcels. There's a detailed table in the staff report that shows the status of each item, but it really boils down to a few issues. We have owners that are unwilling to sell. We have owners who are seeking well above the appraised value. We have some owners just simply non-responsive, not too many of those. The appraised values on some properties that have existing homes are including those homes in the appraisals, which are not really of value to the city in this process. We're interested in the land and the protection of the lands, and so that's significantly raising appraisal values. And then we have properties that are essentially unbuildable, yet they're still appraising fairly high, and the owners are also seeking very high purchase prices. So, we still have room to work on these properties. Rebecca Perry from the North Florida Land Trust had a meeting today with the Ellisons on parcels 69 and 77. That's a good example of the appraisal was in the high 200,000s, and the owner is seeking $1 million for those parcels. So we're just way off. And that's a representative case of where we're at. So the question is, where do we go from here? We had a meeting with the committee on March 29th and had a really good discussion. They provided a lot of good ideas, and I'll just mention some of those here, and then we'll get to our next steps. One of the things they mentioned was possibly obtaining a right of first refusal on property owners who are not willing to sell at this time. Good example of that would be the Sugar Mill Ruins property, very large piece. Owners are just not interested right now. However, we'd hate to see in a few years those owners change their minds and then want to sell it, and we wouldn't be in line to possibly make an offer. The downside is we have to hold the money until that date arrives, and that's indefinite. Some other ideas: splitting properties that have homes on them to possibly acquire the more sensitive lands and leave the more buildable lands to existing homes. Coordinating the land acquisition with the ongoing Corbin Park Stormwater Master Plan, where we're looking for pond sites. Continuing pursuit of these priority 1 and 2 properties, and then considering the priority 3 areas at the north end. But then we also looked at, do we want to look outside of this immediate area into possibly areas in the watershed as a whole that could be looked at? And Kelly, if you could go to page 3 of the exhibit here. That one right there, if you could zoom in on that. The Turnbull Creek watershed is very large. It extends way out to west of I-95. It extends south down into Edgewater. What we hear often, and from several members of the committee, is that the city should use these funds to just acquire lands that could be developed. And sometimes they're not always interested that those lands are immediately next to the creek or a very high environmental value. They see this as a way to really curb development. So that is one option. I thought I'd share that with the commission as far as perhaps a different path to move forward. So I think what we're looking for tonight is maybe some clarity on the direction, so we're just not going all different directions on different priority groups. get some feedback, and then maybe come back to the commission with a more defined plan, perhaps a new prioritized ranking of parcels so we can bring the program forward. Rebecca Perry is here tonight from the North Florida Land Trust, so at this time, I'd be glad to take any questions from the commission.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments from the commission? Commissioner Colodi.
Well, the goal obviously is to protect Turnbull Creek and the areas adjoining it. I find that I would not be inclined to pay substantially greater than an appraised value. I would go back to these individuals and say, look, are you interested at all in a lesser value? Or we should just move on to different properties. I do not have an objection to buying environmental sensitive lands within the watershed that are not physically connected, but I don't want to go into a situation where we're buying random parcels out in the middle of nowhere, because even though it would have some environmental effect, I would prefer to work towards larger parcels. More than happy to move on to your next tier of properties. I find that there hopefully will be more people who are more interested in the environment without penalizing themselves financially. That would help out. Probably one of the biggest suggestions that you made that I could support was conservation easements. You used an example of that Ellison property. We really don't want the buildings. We don't want the business. We want the land along the water. If they would be interested in granting conservation easement, that would be great. It actually wouldn't affect any of their development plans that they may have, or they may want to sell with the property, because it wouldn't have that much of an effect on their gross coverage, so on and so forth. Technical reasons. I want the project to move forward. It was 70% approval on it. Public expects us to move ahead, and we're not moving ahead right now. So we do have to adjust some of our priorities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, the suggestion to get a right of first refusal, how did anyone who brought that up propose how we would do that? Usually you get a right of first refusal, someone likes you, or you're gonna give them some sort of incentive to give you that right of first refusal. Was that discussed? How would we would accomplish that right of first refusal with property owners that don't want to sell now?
Not in great detail. One of our board members was on a similar committee for the city of Winter Park that had a similar arrangement. We haven't drilled down to the specific terms, but we thought we'd mention it to see if it's something the commission would like to pursue. We can.
Well, I don't think that's going to hurt, but I can't imagine someone simply giving us a legal right of first refusal without some kind of financial incentive. So it sounds great. I'm not sure we're ever going to accomplish that. So I'm torn. I'm going to sound a little bit, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. I think we be aggressive. I think we go after properties that we have targeted as very high value. I'm not sure the appraisals are considering for the development value. I hope they are, because if we expect to buy dirt at dirt prices, we're never going to be competitive. I know some properties that you mentioned are developable, and I know some people who plan to sell that for development someday. So my point is, we have to be playing in that ballpark. You know, we can't sit way below what private sector is willing to pay and hope we're going to get it because someone decides they'd take millions of dollars less just to be nice. On the other hand, where I'm going to contradict that is, right now we're seeing this real estate market at approaching an unprecedented high, very similar to 02, 03, 04. So I don't think that it will hurt slowing down a little bit and see what happens with the real estate. Because I think when values start dropping, at least in 03, 04, 05, all of a sudden, in 06, 07, 08, people were chasing after those values they wanted to sell. They hung on too long. So I'm not, I understand, I wanted to acknowledge that that sounds a little bit like yes and no. I'm contradicting myself. Question about the easements. Are we legally able to get easements? I believe it was for the purchase of the land is what the citizens voted on. So I got, one is, are we allowed to do easements? And the second one is, I believe that there was a geographical area that the voters voted on. Can we go, are we talking about possibly going outside that geographical area? And can we do that legally?
So we looked at this issue in 2019, and lands within the watershed are eligible for purchase. Now, the referendum contemplated the acquisition of land, and so based on that language, we weren't able to use bond money for conservation easements. So we would also have trouble using it for acquiring development rights. Now, you could use, we did get refund money. So you're legally able to use the refund money, but then there was the should you, if you're not actually acquiring it.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to touch this with a different ball right now. Okay, so I think we stay on track with what we're doing, but I don't want to overpay for a property to then lose out on the idea of being able to spread the wealth around. And as Commissioner Colodi said, you start getting outside this geographical area. I don't necessarily want to pick up an acre here or a half acre there, but if there's a significant sizable parcel to go after that would, for example, and I'm just using this, I don't know if it's in the watershed area, but there's some very nice land on Art Center Drive. A lot of acreage out there that's not developed. If something like that was inside this watershed, something like that I would certainly be for, because that maintains the integrity of what that area is like. It's out near the Spruce Creek Preserve. It actually probably backs up into it. So I guess what I'm telling you is I'm flexible on that issue.
Other comments? Go ahead.
So how much do we actually borrow on the initial thing? The bond was for 15 million, right?
Yes.
But we didn't borrow the full amount.
We borrowed 9.8.
Okay. So we don't actually, as of yet, don't have that money available.
And remember, we received back 3.45 million
Right.
from the state. And so we had 500,000 left from the other one close by, and then the 3.5 million.
Right.
So you have 4 million plus whatever left on the bond if you choose to do.
Which we'd have to go back out and go through the whole bond process, whatever. Again, I'd like to do the right of refusal, first right of refusal, if that's possible, however that works out. The other is, I want to stay focused on the priority 1 and 2 areas, because there was a lot of work done by that committee and staff to identify those properties. I'd like to try to stay in that area like everybody else. I don't want to buy something, a half acre way out just because it's in the watershed. I don't think that serves the purpose of what the intent was for the bond. If we can get some of these property owners to subdivide their property to where we can purchase just along the creek or, within the creek area, I could certainly support that. But I don't know if that's doable and so.
This is Rebecca Perry from the North Florida Land Trust. I think she can probably best address the current status on the priority 1 and 2,
Okay.
and if there's been any discussion or interest in subdivisions.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for the time. So I would say on the priority 1 parcels, that particular set of owners, I don't think they would want to subdivide at this point, just based on sentimentality and they really love their properties, so they're just not interested.
Okay.
I do think that there are several owners there that would be good for conservation easements. I know you mentioned that there's some debate over whether that would be allowed, but I think that that could push us forward in the priority 1 area. In terms of priority 2, again, we have people that are not willing at all to sell right now. Again, potential easement candidates, but I think those are even longer term. And then we just have some extremely high prices for people that think their properties are developable, so there wouldn't be an option for subdivision in those areas. I did have one person say that they would subdivide and sell just the resource corridor area potentially, but that was one out of several in that priority 2 area.
Okay. Okay.
Question for my colleagues and for staff. There seems to be an approaching, I don't want to be pessimistic, but the reality is an approaching bubble. Property values have increased, I thought I heard 17% in a year, which is astounding and scary. So I wondered, does the commission, do the people have the appetite, and is it feasible to wait? Or will somebody else scarf up the land, even at these high prices? It was intriguing. I thought, Brian, you may have said that there was land available near the Doris Leeper off Art Center. Jason,
Said
is that
that.
right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of land.
I didn't say it's available, I said it exists. A lot of nice land up there on the north side of Art Center, but that, I was simply using that as an example
Yeah.
of something, if we can get some sizable property out there. But I don't know of any
Okay.
one willing to sell it.
Yeah, I would think it'd be tough. And is it wise to wait till something's more affordable?
So I had a couple of comments, if you
throwing it
don't
out there.
mind.
Go ahead.
if I
I
chime
just
in on
thought I'd throw that out
So,
there.
I'm not an expert. If I had a crystal ball in real estate, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be sitting on my private island because I'd have made a fortune. But I will tell you one thing, and when I talk to the people that are boots on the ground in this business, I was looking around to Ashton. I think she left, but if Scott and Ashton were still here, you know, I think we all assume it's a bubble because we all lived through, you know, that 03 to 07 period. But the difference is in 03 to 07 is there's a relaxation in credit standards. So people were borrowing money. I was working with people that they worked the Burger King drive-through, and they were buying a $300,000 home with a variable rate mortgage that they were never going to pay back on the $10 an hour they made. The difference today is, I talked to a real estate agent who happens also to be an elected official at an event I was at today. He said, I've got clients that are wanting to buy. The problem is, by the time I show them a house, the house has 2 or 3 cash offers on it. Cash offers. Not financing, not made-up financing on $10 an hour salary. These are folks that are selling out of California and New York. They're selling a home that they bought for $300K. They sold it for $1 million there, and so they come here, and $350,000 for a 3.2 near the water is chump change. So I'm not sure, I can't speak for the global, but I'm not sure in New Smyrna Beach, 32168, 32169, I don't know if this is a bubble or not. Does it cool off? Yeah, probably. But does it deflate? Does it fall off? I don't know. Again, I wish I had a crystal ball, but I personally, my perspective is we're not sitting on this bubble that is going to pop, and we're going to see these just really, really, you know, falling off a cliff in prices and being able to walk around and pick up all these great values of properties. I just don't see that happening based on that subtle difference in how properties are being purchased today versus in the past. Again, the cash offers are the huge difference. So that leads me to, my comments, and I'll come back to your time because I know I interrupted you. But so my thoughts are, first, this whole watershed versus, you know, the whatever we had initially kind of called it. I agree with my colleagues. I want to stay focused on what we had kind of initially said, especially picking up kind of onesie twosies here and there because, you know, so and so's, you know, wants to sell that. Like that doesn't sit right with me. Large scale properties directly near or, you know, contributing to the creek in some meaningful fashion is how I understood this as a voter. It's what earned my vote, and it's what would earn my continued support. You get too far out, you get up near you know, you get out to Venetian Bay, and I have a hard, and I know that's a little further out than we're talking, but, you know, you get way out to the watershed, and I have a hard time looking a voter in the eye and saying, this is what you voted, this is protecting the, you know, I don't want to see us in that spot. If we do all we can in this area, and we have gotten every available piece of property that we can possibly negotiate and work with, we call this project a success. And then if we want to have some other land preservation project that has a wider aperture, that we are very transparent with the voters on that, and we see if there's support. I think there would be. There has been every time this has been on the ballot in Volusia County that I'm aware of. We just reapproved Echo and Volusia Forever, so the appetite's there. But, you know, I just wouldn't want to see us, you know, pushing that boundary too far. That's just my thoughts. The one thing I would say, though, back to my last comment about the values, is the other thing I'm hearing from the real estate industry is that the appraisal values are lagging. So they're having homes that they're saying, look, you know, your comparables are not your comparables. The appraisals have a hard time. The appraising industry lags the real industry quite a bit. And so I think what will happen is, with time, maybe folks will understand that, you know, hey, maybe the market cools a little bit. So, you know, this isn't just exponential growth. And then the appraisers will actually catch up and be able to say, no, this property is really, maybe it's not the 200K, using your example of that one property. Maybe it's not 200K, maybe it's really 500 or 600K based on everything that's happened. And, you know, and so maybe then the property owners realize, you know, hey, this isn't going to keep going up forever. This is probably a good time. Let me cash out. So I'd like to see us just stay the course. I mean, I know we're anxious to do this. We came out of the gate strong, made some good, strong purchases that were really, frankly, teed up. But, you know, I think in this case, patience is going to be a virtue. Patience is going to pay off. Let's let the appraisal market catch up. Let's let property values hopefully flatten a little bit, not expecting them to decline, but let's just see if they cool off a little bit. And let's wait for the right time. You never know when someone wakes up and decides to, you know, move out of state and wants to sell their property, and we're standing by as a ready buyer. You know, asking nicely for first right of refusal. I heard Commissioner McGurk talk about, you know, I don't know that we have to induce that. I mean, I think if we just ask for most people, hey, just give us a shot. You know, we're a cash buyer. We'd be ready, and very quickly give us a shot at your property for the, you know, the good of this community first. You know, maybe it's not even contractual. Maybe it's handshake. You know, maybe I'm an idealist, but see how far we can get with that. Stay the course on these properties, tier 1s, tier 2. I think those are all good properties. So that's my general thoughts on this. So you were looking for direction. You probably got 10 different directions. So I don't know what you.
I think we got good direction. I think we understand. You know, I heard I'm gonna hit a couple highlights. Consensus items, generally stay the course. Priority 1 and 2 still very important. Put our efforts towards those. Maybe take a closer look at some things, the real value, the appraisals, work with them on the real developable, how buildable are these properties.
Yeah, some owner education, yeah.
Try and we'll continue in that area. Going outside, sounds like of that area, very limited interest in that, except for perhaps a very significant piece that has a lot of value that might be worth pursuing. And then looking at possible terms for the right of first refusal, just to see what that would look like and see what our options are.
That sounds like what I heard. Okay. I don't think we need any kind of motion on that. We were just giving direction to staff.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7D. Approval of the parking lease agreement.
This
Colin.
is about a year and a half ago to 2 years almost since we started talking about the City Hall Annex renovation. We expected some parking issues that we might have around City Hall with everything going on around us. So we approached the First Baptist Church. We've been working with them for the past year and a half, back and forth with their leadership. And finally, we came up to an agreement where we are leasing 18 parking spaces at the north end of their parking. Those 18 spaces will be used for city use only, but mainly what we'll be using them for personal vehicles for our city employees. This way we could have the parking where the building is for customers and other citizens to use the parking. The parking spaces will be leased Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. What we did is we made them an offer initially. They went back and forth. They want the same value as we have on the beach side with the other church. So right now, I'm just going to give you the highlight of the points. About $500 a space per year, which amounts to $9,000 per year, and that is coming out of the building fund. So it's not affecting the general fund at all. It's a 5-year lease, total of 18 spaces. Again, they will be utilized Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 by city use only. Both parties have agreed that they are responsible for all their own negligence. And then if we wanted to terminate the lease, we'll just have to give him a 1-month notice. Now, keep in mind, we purchased the other property at the corner of Faulkner and Washington. That is under being right now for a conceptual plan for parking. But the idea is I wanted to keep this for at least a year just to see what's going to happen when they move to the area. And if we still need the need, we keep renewing it. If not, then we'll terminate the lease. And again, they're strictly for city use only. So the lot at the corner of Washington and Faulkner, that will be only used for the building department. So obviously, because we use the building funds, we will not be able to use it for special events. So that was clear indication from the Builders Association when we met with them. The staff is recommending this, the approval of this lease, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Any questions, comments on this item? Kyle, just real quick. So basically these spaces and that other lot would all be kind of dedicated for building staff, the inspector cars, et cetera. And then all the parking out front would be available for folks that are visiting. The building department would be probably 90% of the time. Commission meetings would be the other 10.
We have city vehicles, and then they have their own personal vehicles. So hopefully the personal vehicles, they will be parked with the churches. And when the lot is developed at the corner, we could actually have our city vehicles there. So the front parking would be completely available for such as like, the farmer's market or any special events around City Hall.
Yeah, and for parking during normal business hours to visit, to get a permit, to visit
Yes.
the department. Okay.
For customers and citizens as well.
Okay. I mean, I like that direction. There's nothing more frustrating to me than pulling up to a place to do business and all the good spots are taken by all the, already taken by all the cars that work there. So I like that we're pushing that parking off and to the back so we don't have a bunch of inspector cars, city cars parked out there all the time and people can pull up and do business. So
And this was thought of immediately as soon as we start putting plans for the building.
Yeah.
So it's not like something, it's not a reaction to something, it's really, it was planned from the get-go to get this parking.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was just going to highlight. We just had this discussion in, a couple meetings back on Riverwalk parking. This isn't driven off of, I don't believe in my experience, and correct me if any of you have seen different, but folks are not parking all the way over at City Hall and walking to Riverwalk. Like that there's no that's not the overflow parking for Riverwalk. So this need existed a year and a half ago. We started this process before we ever knew about that. So
Absolutely.
we're not subsidizing that business's parking with this. This was the plan all along. So, all right. Any other comment? Yeah, sorry. I saw Jason and then I saw you.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
So the money for this would come out of where?
Out of the building fund?
Out of the building, okay, that's it.
Okay. You're good, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on this item? If not, do I have a motion to approve the parking lease agreement?
So move to approve.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Parking lease is approved. Thank you. Item 8A, special exception. This will be a public hearing to consider the approval of a special exception for the use of motorcycle sales at 218 North Dixie. This will be a quasi-judicial hearing. We'll first hear from, so the process will be we'll hear from the city, Then we'll hear from the applicant, and along the way, the commission will ask questions. We will also hear from members of the public. If you're here to talk about this item, you will have a chance as well. And then we'll close all of that, and the commission will debate and decide the topic. So with that, I'll open up for the city.
We have a brief overview of this item. It's a special exception request for approval to allow retail sales of custom motorcycles in the mixed-use zoning district on a .4-acre property located at 218 North Dixie Freeway, which by the aerial map here is at the southwest corner of Washington Street and North Dixie. The existing property consists of an abandoned gas station. The applicant is proposing to replace that with a new building, including replacement of the fuel islands, with a new commercial building, including property upgrades of landscaping and parking. The applicant plans on operating a retail sales shop for electric bicycles and custom motorcycle sales. The electric bicycle sales are a permitted use, but the sale of custom motorcycles requires City Commission approval of this special exception. Per the applicant, the custom motorcycles will be built inside the building, and the expected number of motorcycles to be built are 12 to 15 units per year. So these are real high-end, very nice custom motorcycles is what he has in mind. The applicant is here as well. The surrounding future land uses.
Oh, no.
Khaled did it.
Khaled. He just wanted some water. Clean up on aisle 9. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Keep going here. Surrounding future land uses are commercial, and the surrounding zoning classifications are mixed use to the south, east, and west, and B3 to the north. There is a detailed criteria review in the agenda packet. Staff believes the special exception meets all of the applicable criteria, or they are items that the applicant is aware of that they'll need to incorporate during site plan and building review. The item went before the Planning and Zoning Board hang on here. On April 5th, they voted 6-0 to recommend approval. Staff also recommends approval. Staff recommends using our standard expiration in the LDR, which requires submittal of the site plan and building permit applications within 1 year. The Planning and Zoning Board added a recommended condition that in addition to submitting the site plan and building permit applications within a year, they asked that the site plan and building permits be issued within 1 year of the applications being submitted. So we normally don't have issuance in our criteria. The Planning and Zoning Board, I think, wanted to tie them down to a tighter time frame. So it's Commission's option whether to go with the standard expiration or to require that 1 year for issuance of the site plan and building permits. That's staff's presentation. Happy to take any questions. Again, the applicant is here.
Okay, Brian, real quick, bounce that off me one more
Okay.
time. It was submitted versus issued?
So current code standard is submitted within 1 year,
Okay.
site plan and building permit, and that's it. Planning and Zoning Board wanted an additional requirement that it be issued a year after those applications arrive.
Okay, so basically that would put the submitted deadline of something like, what, 9 months?
Up to 2 years total, a year to get the site plan in, and then after that site plan's in, they have a year to have that issued. What they're trying to prevent is somebody submitting just kind of a flyer site plan, get it in, and never do anything. 10 years later, say, I submitted it.
I'm saying if we wanted to go with this issued, what does that mean what would that mean for the applicant of when would that mean they would need to submit in a realistic scenario? Does that give them 9 months to submit? Does that give them 6 months?
They could still submit any time within that 1 year, and then just the approval would have to be issued. So they'd have to follow up with their building permit submittal.
I'm not asking this the right way. What I'm trying to say is, if they wanted to have it issued within 12 months, if we added that stipulation, based on reasonable assumptions, at what point, what is the latest they could wait and still meet that deadline? What is the latest they could wait to submit it and still meet this 12-month issued deadline?
They could wait
Realistically.
to the end of the first year to submit a site plan. They get, what the planning and zoning is saying is, let's say you take 6 months to submit a site plan.
Yeah.
From that date, you have a year to have it
I
issued.
got you, okay. It was
So
me
it's
that
a
wasn't
maximum period of 2 years.
Got it, okay.
I'm sorry I didn't explain that well.
No, I just didn't understand. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet now. Mr. McGurk.
No, I'm glad I was with you on that one. With the recommendation from Planning and Zoning, is that realistic considering the challenges that we've had with all the applications coming in? We're busy. Does that create any kind of potential issue?
I believe it can be done. That's a reasonable time frame if the applicant is seeking to move forward fairly soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll hear from them and be able to no doubt question them. I thought I saw your hand up.
No, that was my question. So it could be delayed by us also, and also by them, if they fail to respond to staff comments, or we just somehow get it lost in a shuffle of paperwork.
Yeah, this would really be more on them. I mean, there's some review time in there for us, but if they intend to move forward, they have plenty of time within that window to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
And are they going to speak to that, or have you talked to them? Are they good with that, or?
We're going to hear from them next, so I
Okay.
think we'll let them comment to that. Any questions for staff on the side? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian, are there existing storage tanks on the facility?
Those would have to be verified. They're either removed or filled prior to this building moving forward.
Did they test also for possible leakage or plumes? Just for everybody's information?
I'll leave that to the applicant. I don't know what they've performed yet on site for soil testing. That's
Right.
something we would look at site plan time.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Colodi, any comments before we hear from the applicant? Any questions?
None.
All right. Next is the applicant. If they're here and would like to speak, this is your chance. You can give any kind of presentation you would like and or answer the questions you've heard, and then at the end we'll have some questions for you as well.
The tanks were removed in 2011.
Pull that mic up if you would.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. There you
Yeah,
go.
tanks were removed in 2011. The NFA, no further action through the state of Florida, should occur in June. There's about 23 testing wells on the property currently. There's only one in question, and that would be on the south side of the property near Pinch and Penny, I think, between the building. There was a oil storage tank there. They had a well that kept testing high, and I think hydrofluorocarbons. The state had been working with another testing center to verify whether or not that particular well was still contaminated, or they were going to drill another. They had decided here at the beginning of April to drill another well, which they did. They tested that particular well, and that came back in a pass. Well, they want to wait another 2 months, which will be the end of this month, to test again. And that particular well, if it comes up with a pass, then they're going to cap that. The state will come in once the funds are available through the state of Florida, come in and pull their wells back out of that particular property. And at that point in time, we can apply for demolition permit, and we can tear down the building. The thing's an eyesore, I think everybody agrees. And then at that point, we can move forward. So I think, to answer your question, yes, the tanks are all removed. There's 23 wells over the period of time. I think Petroleum Restoration Act back in 1996 is when this all started on that particular corner. And as of 2011, after they pulled finally all the tanks out of that particular corner, they started testing, and that's when they realized, okay, everything else on that particular property is clean, with the exception of that particular well. I think they call it DW2. So when you go through, we did a lot of research on this particular property before we decided to purchase, and realized, okay, after reading all of that, night after night after night, and realizing I can finally get a hold of the test scientists through the state of Florida, and was able to talk to them, and they have determined that the NFA can actually occur as early as the end of this particular month or the beginning of next. All we really need to do is just get a clean water sample out of that particular well. So once that occurs, then we can finally, get rid of that blue building on that corner and do something really neat on that particular corner. To speak to motorcycles, it's in our DNA I've got a shop up in Minneapolis, just north of. We've been in business up there for the past 10 years. We came down here specifically for the reason of motorcycle repair and do have a shop over in Edgewater. But I realized real quick that during the pandemic, people were looking for an alternative, and that alternative was electric bikes. A lot of people were talking about electric bikes. The problem was, because we had a repair shop, everybody thought, gosh, you know what, you guys can fix electric bikes. We didn't know anything about them, right? But we're a repair shop. Let's bring them in. And we realized every place in the world will sell an electric bike online, but nobody in this community has a place to take them to have them repaired. So quickly we became the repair facility for electric bikes, and then made a determination, why don't we try to sell electric bikes? So the motorcycle piece is sort of coming out of our DNA a little bit, and the electric bike piece is really starting to become who we are. And the motorcycle industry is starting to fastly get into the electric motorcycle. So whether it be a Harley-Davidson Livewire or their new, Streetwire, which is a fairing-based motorcycle with an electric motor, we've always prided ourselves as being an alternative to a great big box retailer, such as a Harley-Davidson or, pick a company, and to give fair pricing and give an alternative for repair. So with the electric bike world, and now that electric bike world now going into some of these great big manufacturers, we thought, hey, what better way than to do it here? And, I've been in and out of New Smyrna Beach since 2007, so we just absolutely love this community. And we thought that corner, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but that corner is really ugly, and that's the first thing people see when they come off of Flagler Avenue and jump onto Dixie Freeway or A1A, and you're looking at this ugly corner. Well, let's beautify that corner. Let's do something really cool there. Let's get rid of that massive ingress-egress issue, and let's do something that I think will serve the community well, which is this electric bike community, the biking community, a little bit of exercise, and that sort of thing. So to speak to the motorcycle portion, maybe 10 to 12 a year, and that's not everybody can afford them. So we're talking motorcycles that are $45,000, $50,000. They're based upon a Harley-Davidson platform, but there's a lot of changes made to that particular bike, and they'll be stored generally and displayed inside the facility. So it'll be a real small portion, and I'm thinking maybe 20%, because if I could sell 12 to 20 motorcycles a year and afford that corner, that would be awesome, but that's not going to work. So it's going to be a small part of our business. I can't abandon it, but it'll be there, and that's what I'm hoping we can get an approval from you on.
Thank you for the
any other
background.
questions?
So I didn't catch your name, if I can.
Gary.
Gary.
Yep.
Got it. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Gary? Yes, Jason.
So your current location in Edgewater, are you going to keep that location, or are you shutting that one down and coming up here?
No, what I'll do is I'll sell that location, probably to a local plumbing company right on the same road, because I think it works better for them than it would us. It's not much of a retail location. It's tucked back. It's off Hibiscus Drive. So if you're familiar at all with that area, it's just on the west side of the rail line. So this is just on the east side of the rail line, but that traffic over there, the rail traffic, is extremely loud, for one, and it's not a retail location. So if you were to drive by our building and you were to look at it, you would think, wow, they did a really nice job with that particular building, and it does look nice. However, it's not much of a retail location, so it's very difficult for people. Even a lot of our customers are from this particular town, right? And so when they say, hey, I'm over in Edgewater, it's 4.5, 5 miles away. And it's not real easy to get to. A lot of times it's a deterrent to bring people in. So I'm constantly in my truck driving. So we're going to close it.
So you hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
I don't want to say it's a concern of mine, but it's certainly a thought.
What? Oh, if I'm going to keep that?
No.
Oh.
You're talking about this location. It's a retail location.
Yep.
You're talking about the fabrication, the development of motorcycles. You're building metal. You're cutting metal. You're
No.
fabricating it. No?
Nope. None of that.
So how do you build a motorcycle without having to do that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question, because what we do is we take the standard frame of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, for example, and I'll paint it. I'll put on carbon fiber accessories. I'll put on upgraded suspension components, bolt-on components such as handlebars, various different powder coating applications, wheels, exhaust systems, air intake systems, motor enhancements, transmission enhancements, lighting enhancements, seating enhancements. So as far as cutting and the dirty work that you're referring to, I don't want to do that either. That is
Right,
not
the
anywhere in my
industrial part
wheelhouse.
So what you're saying is you're not going to be doing the industrial part of it. You're assembling parts is essentially what you're telling me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I like that, and I like the idea of where you're going with this. I just want to make sure we're not going to get into something, an unintended consequence. You know, when you went into, if you've ever been in where Volusia Motorsports used to be, you walk in, nice showroom. You walk to the very back, you look, it opens up to a area where they do repairs and all the maintenance and all that kind of stuff. It was done right. So from what you're describing, I'm optimistic that that's the kind of retail showroom that you're going to create. Aesthetics are going to be important. They're important to me. And you're right. It's a terrible looking location, but I want something nice there.
It'll be a lot
And
nicer.
so it sounds great. The you know, the e-bikes and the green, and then the high-end motorcycles. Is that location? So I like it. I'm just gonna your site plan, I think, is going to be very important when you come in, to make sure that that you're maintaining what appears to be a nice retail location as opposed to some sort of assembly line, or as, I'm not going to use the word fabrication because you're saying that's not happening, but you're assembling the pieces of the motorcycle. Should be a lot less noisy. It should be a lot less involved. You're not having you're not having the kind of industrial type use there that would be traditional with making the frames or the metal components.
Correct. And no welding, so we don't do any of that either. Once you hurt the integrity of the frame with a welder, you've just basically lost the value of the VIN number on the motorcycle. So we're talking a small portion of our business. The building plans, and pictures are worth 1,000 words. So if you were to see our small shop over in Edgewater, or if you were to see our larger location north of Minneapolis, you would see something that you wouldn't even equate to a motorcycle repair or maintenance facility. The floors are super clean, the equipment is brand new, the waste oil containers you don't see. These are all things, tires, different things that you would think of when you think of a repair facility. You just won't see that. And if you were to go to our shop over in Edgewater, a lot of the comments are, wow, I can't believe my floors are shiny black, right? People go in and they go, wow, I can't believe that you guys actually do what you do here. It's
Thank you.
clean. So that's our goal.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
So you heard P&Z's recommendation that the building permit be obtained within a year after filing it. Is that an issue with you, or?
No, I'd love to have the building permit issued the day after I get the NFA.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can get rid of that thing.
Other comments or questions? All right. Yeah. So basically, I'm in agreement with Commissioner McGurk's line of questioning. What I'm hearing you say is it's going to look nothing like the auto repair shop that you share a corner with. You're not going to see this open bay concept. I worked on auto repair. I know it's not, that's not the look that we're going to see there. It's going to be more of this retail showroom with, high-end production happening, maybe visible, maybe hidden. That's your business model, but we're not going to get that, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, so the front of the building, let's use an 80 by 60 example. 18-foot ceilings in the back of the building with a 23-foot ceiling in the front of the building. So essentially, the entire front of the building would be super tall, 23 feet tall. So it'd sort of mimic what you see here. And the front of the building would be glass with a 12-foot awning off the front of it. Then a 5-foot awning on the top portion of that, all windowed. So the entire front of the building would be windowed. 2 doors on the side, standard 10 by 10 garage doors, but all glass. So they would be glass garage doors. Inside, great big, huge ceiling fans with a nice lighting plan, kind of like what you, probably not this, you may have seen us commenting on these lights. Similar, but not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is just kind of build a really neat, eco-friendly looking style building with glass, with a nice color, with a nice outdoor area. You know, all of the bay doors that you would think in the back, you know, they're going to be, 12-foot standard roll-up doors.
Yeah.
They won't be glass, but you won't see them either unless you're coming across a rail line on Washington. So that's the idea.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Gary. So
Yes.
we're going to hear from the public now, and
Okay.
then we'll have closing comments. If there's anything you want to follow up on that you hear from the public, if there's comments, you'll have that chance. Members of the public, if anyone wish to comment on this item? All right. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And any closing comments from the city or the applicant at this time? Brian?
Just would ask in your motion to determine whether to recommend the additional condition from the Planning and Zoning Board or to remain with the standard condition.
All right, so if the motion maker would just make sure to have clarity on if you're accepting P and Z recommendation or staff's recommendation, you can just phrase it that way.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to grant the special exception and include the additional condition that the planning board wished to have included.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Hearing and seeing no other discussion, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, it's been adopted. Thank you all. Gary, you should start a podcast. I could listen. His voice is very calming.
It's not consistent with his general appearance.
Yeah, I could listen to you talk about other topics besides a building for sure. All right, there you go. Thank you all. Item 8B, nice to meet you. Look forward to working with you. Item 8B, ordinance 8-21, would authorize a pole attachment licensing agreement with the Utilities Commission. City Attorney will read this second time by title only.
Ordinance number 821, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach authorizing the Utilities Commission to execute and enter into a pole attachment licensing agreement with Level 3 Communications LLC for a term exceeding 4 years, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Carrie, I think you have the report on this one.
So this item you had before you in February of this year, and I'm trying to pull up the agenda.
It's fine. It was February sometime. We remember.
Yeah. So this commits the Utilities Commission and Level 3 Communications for joint use of utilities poles. It's in effect for 5 years with 4 successive 5-year renewal terms. And that we have this before us because of the charter provision that says we have to approve any agreement they enter into that's longer than 4 years.
Okay. And at the time, if this is the same item, and I forgot to ask you before the meeting, if this is the same item, this is the one that we had some concerns that were brought forward, the UC took it back, they had some internal debate with their legal team, all of those things have been cleared, we're okay with all those?
Yeah, there was some concern that the legislature was going to take some action to
Yeah.
limit the amounts that they were charging, but whatever it was that the concern was never came
all
to
been cleared.
fruition,
Okay.
and it's clear.
Got it. All right, this is a public hearing. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 8-21?
So moved.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
821 is adopted. Number 2021, 8C, would grant a non-exclusive franchise to Samsula Landfill. City Attorney will read this ordinance a second time by title only.
Ordinance number 2021, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Samsula Landfill, Inc. to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach. outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
All right, gentlemen, we've seen a lot of these. Do we need any questions? Do we need a staff report? Do you have anything specific?
Yeah, just
on
to
this one?
note, Mayor,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a regular item, except that they have let their license lapsed. So this is a new application for
Okay.
Samsula, so.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 20-21?
Move to approve ordinance 2021.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Hartman, second by McGurk. City Clerk, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
2021 is adopted. 8D, new impact fee rates for law enforcement, fire protection, et cetera. City Attorney, read this a second time by title only.
Ordinance number 2121, an ordinance amending the City of New Smyrna Beach Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 52, Comprehensive Impact Fee Ordinance, Sections 5225, 5226, 5230, 5231, 5235, and 5236, to adopt the City of New Smyrna Beach 2021 Impact Fee Study related to fire protection and emergency services, parks and recreational facilities, and law enforcement impact fees, and impose the revised rates, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
So public hearing, any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-21?
Motion to approve 20-21.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
This is kind of the end of a long road we've been going down with our impact fees. These haven't been changed for a long time. State of Florida is looking at changes to the rules and regulations. The sooner we pass this, the better we are, just in case they decide to start preempting more things.
Okay. Yes.
I see some impact fees were dramatically increased, others were lowered. I'd like to see a little more balance on that personally. We spent a lot of time and money with studies, we've kicked this around. I see some things in there that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, but that certainly seems to be the exception, not the rule. Just wanted to state that. Thank you, Mayor.
So, I also had some concerns about some of these, but, you know, through this whole process, there is an appeal process. So that gives me more comfort with that. So if it truly impacts, you know, a startup business or something like that, it's certainly something that we can deal with at that time. So I would support it.
Okay. We had a motion, we had a second. City Clerk, did you catch who the second was? They both spoke at the same time, just making sure you caught one of them.
Yes, I did.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay.
All right, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
No.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
2121 is adopted. Ordinances first reading, we have two. City Attorney will read those.
Ordinance number 2221, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the land development regulations, amending Article 2 definitions, Section 201 general definitions, to revise the definition of waterfront setback, amending Article 7 standards for sites with special characteristics, Section 70301 construction standards, and 70302 development east of the city coastal construction setback line, to provide for a single coastal construction setback line, exemptions, and a variance process, providing for codification, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. I also want to read the second one, but then I think we want to stop and just make sure if there's any comments for city staff that
Okay.
we take that moment and do that.
Okay.
Ordinance number 2321, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 26, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 9, Seawalls and Other Coastal Armoring Structures, to revise Section 26771, Construction, providing for codification, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This, this does not look like the correct ordinance. Let me check one thing. We're supposed to be repealing this section. But Brian, if you want to go ahead and ask for any comments while I pull that up.
Yeah, so so it's a first reading, so we're not voting on this, but is there any, we all reviewed it, no doubt, it was in the agenda package. Any comments, directions to give to staff between now and the second reading on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
Try and be quick.
Vice Mayor.
We're talking 2321, correct?
Yes, yeah, the coastal armament.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about seawalls. There's lots of evidence out there, and I'll seek it out and share it with my colleagues that seawalls are not the best structure to armor a beachhead. We may find that actual giant boulders like they have down in Bethune may work. So if possible, could city staff, I know you got a lot to do, take a look at that and see if it's a good option. It's more natural and may provide the safety and protection that might be needed. I'm
Sure.
hopeful.
We can do that. This particular ordinance leaves in the seawalls as, one of the items that's permitted east of the CCSL line. We didn't change any of the rules and requirements for those, but we can look, we are monitoring various armoring. The science and the technology behind it is changing, but at least this ordinance does not change that.
Okay, thank you.
One correction for the record, I need a redo on the title for ordinance number 2321, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 26, Buildings and Building Regulations to repeal Article 9, Seawalls and Other Coastal Armoring Structures, Section 26771, Construction, providing for codification, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. That was an earlier draft that was stuck in my folder.
It's okay. Brian, my question on this one simply was, from what I'm reading, this isn't necessarily opening or closing the aperture on what's allowed. It's more change. We basically, I took it as we had it in two places, and now we're just going to have it in this one place. Is that a correct statement or an incorrect statement?
That's the first part of it. It's really a two-part ordinance. First is moving the line, so we have one line instead of two.
Yeah, okay, so that's 2221, right?
2221 includes that plus the changes in the actual regulations of what's allowed east of the line.
Okay.
So basically what we did was we're moving the line. Once that line moves, for most properties, it's more restrictive, and property owners can't apply and request moving that line. We can't move the DEP line.
Yeah.
But in exchange for that, or in consideration, I should say, we've looked at giving some flexibility to what can be done east of the line, and then there is also a new variance process for that. So there's options still for homeowners.
Got it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment and a question for Brian for the record? Brian, we just joined the American Flood Coalition, and it's always been my hope that we can protect our city from global sea rise, which appears imminent. That's debatable, but we're losing beach. So my point is, if we're joining that coalition, is there a way that we could kindly encourage people to steer away from seawalls and look for another means of protecting their property? Not mandating it, but giving options, since we need to be resilient. We're kind of working hand in hand there, so.
That is something we could look into. Right now, the homeowners do have the ability to apply for, and there's a lot of approvals needed, not just the city for a seawall, but those are available. We can look into that as far as perhaps amending that policy.
And if I may, the question about the moving, or which line are we going to use? The DEP's line is more restrictive than the city's line, correct?
In most areas,
no, sorry, the city's line.
They're kind of, they move in and out.
Yeah,
they do this, they zigzag,
right.
yeah. No, we're adopting the DEP line. I think I don't remember if you were at that one. I think you were at that workshop. We discussed it at length. They do this right now.
Right.
Predominantly, I think we determined that the DEP line was, in most cases, more restrictive, but occasionally the cities was east
Okay.
of the DEP line. The notion was it's confusion for staff. There's nothing that backs our line up. The DEP line can produce a scientific study to say this is why it is here. We can't. So we felt like there was a lot more value in just saying, look, let's clear the confusion, go with the DEP line. So that's where we landed on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I would be curious if, you know, that American Flood Coalition or, you know, any of those other things that we join, if they have any position statements on seawalls, you know, if they come out and issued any kind of saying they're for, against, neutral, you know, what their opinion is on them. Might be interesting.
And more importantly, do they have any suggestions instead of just saying this isn't good?
What should we do? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What does work? What do they recommend? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Okay. Is that feedback? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Clody, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, that was an excellent review of the engineering reasons for changing the lines. I commend you on that.
I can't always be, is he being sarcastic? Is that?
Seawalls aren't the best thing. They're not good. They basically move the problem from one area to another. But there are certain instances where federal government does recommend and allow them. So I would hate to see them taken away completely.
Okay. All right, so you got feedback on that before it comes back for the second reading. Carrie, you completely finished with all the 9 A and B?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 10 is, so we're now into boards and commissions. Gentlemen, we've got a few here, so try to stay with me. We've got the CDBG. So we've got 6 regular members and 1 ex officio member that we will hopefully reappoint tonight, submit for your consideration. And then we have the appointment of 1 member. So as a brief history on this, that board was created in conjunction with a county grant. So the terms are all coterminous. They're not staggered. So the length has been changed. We just did that earlier in the consent agenda, you may recall, from 2 years to 3 years. We will more than likely, the city clerk has pointed out in my notes here, we will more than likely require a waiver from the commission because of the very tight parameters of that particular board. We do struggle to get applicants to fill it, so we may have to push to extend those limits. I don't think that we have to do that tonight, but we may have to in the future. So tonight, I'm looking for a motion to reappoint the 6 regular members and 1 ex officio member that are currently serving, and they would remain in those roles. So do I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second. Had a motion. I'll take the vice mayor's second. And city clerk, if you'd call the roll on that.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we also, that is like an 8-person, I think we just talked, 8-person board. That
Okay.
gave us 6 members and an ex officio. The ex officio member cannot serve on the board because it is a husband and wife. They're both on that, so one of them has to remain that ex officio member. So we are still missing 2 people. We had 1 application. It was confirmed by the clerk's office to reside in the appropriate zone. And so do I have a motion to appoint Antarius Jackson to serve as a member of the CDBG Advisory Board?
So moved.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. City clerk, if you'd call the roll on that.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes. Okay, item, so we have members Christy Bell, Sylvia Duval, Donald Simpson, Sabrina Smith, Tim Washington, Mildred White have been reappointed. Judith Simpson has been reappointed as an ex officio, and Antarius Jackson has been appointed to serve, and all of those terms expire March 29th, 2024. Thank you. Item 10B, Historic Preservation Commission. We recently had resignations of Ann Amara and Marvin Owens, no relation, thank you. City Commission will consider the appointment to fill their unexpired terms. Of note, thank you for this, Kelly, just saw it. We don't have to actually take a motion to accept member resignations, so we're not going to be doing that anymore, thank you. We have 2 applications, and there are 2 vacancies. So do I have a motion to appoint the two applicants to the board? If there's a motion for that, or if someone would like to do something different. So there's a motion to appoint Susan Ladd and Christy, I apologize if I messed the last name up, Ambrodiak, to the Historic Preservation Commission.
So, a question.
Yes.
So do they expire on different dates, right? Different years?
Yes, good point. One term will be March 14th, 2022, and one will be May 14th, 2023. So we can take it step by step if you would like. So would someone like to make a motion to appoint either Susan Ladd or Christy to the May 14th, 2022 term?
Motion to appoint Susan Ladd to the 2022 term.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on that. We'll just do it. City Clerk, if you call the roll on that one.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to appoint then Christy Ambrodiak to the May 14th, 2023 term?
So moved.
Second.
And City Clerk.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So those fine people have been appointed. Item 10C, Leisure Activity Board. Consider the appointment of one resident to the Leisure Activity Board to serve a 3-year unexpired term to expire on June 22nd, 2024, due to a resignation of a member. We have we have like 10 applications. Do I have any nominations? There's one vacancy, so if you would please make one nomination if you have one. Yes, ma'am.
If I may, I tried to think.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't see it.
That's okay. It's up to it's the commission's pleasure. I was just informed tonight from Mr. David Ray. They had a scheduled LAAB meeting over at City Hall this evening. It was the second consecutive Leisure Activities Advisory Board meeting that didn't have a quorum, and the meeting prior to that, they struggled to have a quorum, but they finally did. So I don't know if you want to make that appointment tonight or hold off until we figure out what to do with the Leisure Activities Advisory Board, the future of that.
Okay. Any thoughts? Anyone?
Yeah, I suggest we get a list of absentees and on that board.
I can do that.
That's the problem with the quorum, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need the last 12 months of people who,
Yeah.
whether or not they've been absent or not,
Which we-
and then maybe we readdress this, remove them, and start putting people on.
I mean, because we have, again,
Sure.
10 applicants or so. So, yeah.
This shouldn't be a problem with these
Yeah.
many applicants, so we could solve this pretty easily, hopefully.
So, any objections, gentlemen, with delaying on this and getting that data and then possibly making some other changes to that board? And maybe, Kelly, if you would, if you notice repeat absences, maybe just reach out to those folks and acknowledge and say, hey, we have other people who are willing to serve. Would you like to resign? And, just talk through that with them. And rather than put us, I don't want to have to kick folks off the board. I'd rather them acknowledge they're not going to attend the meeting. So,
Well, I
can do that.
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
can't have quorums, we gotta.
Right. All right. Any objections having Kelly run with that and give us an update at the next meeting? All right. Thank you, Kelly. Next meeting or two, however long it takes. Mayor and commission reports. We'll begin with the vice mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope everyone in our fair city is well. We survived another Jeep escapade. I wonder if my fellow commissioner was there with his Jeep, but for the most part, they were orderly. I would like to suggest one thing. We have so many events that go on in the city. Sometimes they overlap, having them the same day. Would it be possible for the people who put on the events coordinate with each other so we wouldn't have to overload our city with 2 or 3 events at the same time? I hope that could work for them. And it would spread those events out over the year, making it less crowded and also providing a little economy for most of the year. That's just one thought I thought of. And most importantly, I just want to add tonight, gentlemen, we have a draft traffic manual before us. As we all had thought, the folks on Riverside Drive have some spillover from Magnolia. That's what they state, and I do believe them. There probably is some. They also have tourism. It's a very hot time. People are escaping from COVID. They're using Riverside as a cut-through to get to the beach. If we could, when we finally get the manual, could we take a look at Riverside? I don't think they're asking for very much. They will come forward very loudly and ask for some help. I would hope we could use them as a model to provide them with some relief. The whole neighborhood of the South Mainland is now affected by cut-through traffic from Edgewater, which is growing. It's one of the corridors that leads to the city. Nothing like 44, of course, but hopefully we could use it as a model and they could come together. So far, they've asked for very little, but I'm hoping and expecting a presentation. I believe they did also gather either a petition or a list of their requests. So thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have for you now.
And Vice Mayor, just so you would note that the police department have completed the traffic study on South Riverside Drive.
Yes.
So we'll be reviewing it, and I'm not sure when we'll take them back the traffic common manual.
May 25th. May 20th. We're
Okay.
planning for the May 25th
So on May
agenda.
25th, we'll take back the kind of like the amended traffic calming manual. So hopefully we'll have that approved, and then we look at the study, and then we could see what we could do.
Fair enough. Thanks. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, Commissioner McGurk, your time.
All right, well, I'm making a comment. Jake, I'll comment on that.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing we absolutely said we would not do is move the problem from one street to another. And we did exactly that. So after we gave Magnolia a bunch of speed bumps and everything under the sun, then Live Oak had a problem. And then we put stop signs and stuff on Live Oak. And now Riverside has the problem. And we're kicking that back, and now you're asking for Riverside to be treated nicely because they're cut-throughs. And I made it very clear I have probably 5 to 10 cut-throughs in my district, and so does everybody else. So are we just going to start putting stop signs and speed bumps on every cut-through street? Are we going to gridlock the community? So I'm not happy with it. I think that we have painted ourselves into a corner. We've created a little bit of an albatross, and we keep making it worse. So I'm more inclined to take away what we've done instead of keep adding to the problem, because we did exactly what we said we wouldn't do. Anyway, moving on to the next issue, I was not on the prevailing side of the dock vote. I'm hoping that one of the three one of y'all will consider that. Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hartman.
So to go along with the comments on Riverside, I'm not in favor of doing anything over there now because sometime in June or July, maybe construction's going to start on a bridge, which is going to drastically impact traffic on that road anyway. So it may not be the time to enact something the first part of the year until we have a better schedule with the bridge process, et cetera, et cetera. On a happy note, was able to attend the Habitat ribbon cutting for a new homeowner. The young lady that had applied and was accepted for the new house was also a resident of the of New Smyrna Beach Housing Authority. So she was very excited to be able to be the new homeowner of that home. It's a positive thing for us that we've moved them out of the Housing Authority into a home for their own selves. It was a very festive kind of time. They also planted a tree in the front yard to kind of celebrate Arbor Day. So it was really great for them. And actually, if any of you haven't seen what Habitat is doing, they're doing there's put a lot of thought into the way they build a house and why they build a house the way they do. So I'd encourage you to go over there and look at that, sometime if you have an opportunity. Khalid and I attended the Crystal Apple Award. For those of you who remember, this is the 30th year of this award being in progress. Again, there was 14 applicants, but only 4 winners. It's amazing what we've attended in the past, and it's always been amazing what some of these teachers do on their own time for their students, to encourage them, you know, and to get them through the whole process. Then you throw a pandemic on top of that. And as they read these applications, and again, it's amazing to me how these teachers are dealing with all that they're dealing with and still going above and beyond. I mean, to me, it was inspirational. So my hat's off to all the teachers in Volusia County. I think they're all doing a great job. On a other note, we keep hearing about this traffic or this noise issue with the airport. And I'm not sure where we are with that. I thought that was going to be more with the airport board, would maybe kind of have some input, give us some resolution. I didn't know we were going to have a workshop.
I could provide you a report at the next city commission meeting, but I could tell you this, they did the noise study probably about in 2007, 2009.
Right.
And based on that, there wasn't any issue with noise. However, they came up with voluntarily suggestions on traffic pattern and traffic noise and so forth. And they do that, but then, like Mrs. Radigan said, that sometimes they don't follow that.
Right.
And she's asking for more stuff. And I tried. I have met with her, if I tell you 50 times, probably more. And I honestly, every time I tried to do something, I came to a block. I mean, based on the noise study that was done, wasn't any noise. She contends that the noise study was not sufficient. That met the FAA requirement, and I don't know what else to do with it.
So, I'm not aware of a workshop that was planned for that. No idea where that came from. How she got that information. Certainly, it was, I'm not aware of it. I didn't discuss it. 15 years ago, roughly, this was a big issue in the community. There was a lot of people who put a lot of time into the voluntary restrictions. I will tell you this, I cannot speak to Ms. Radigan's issue. I think that's a number of her complaints are isolated to her. She thinks it's personal. She says they fly over her house intentionally. I don't want to address that issue in these comments. But I will tell you that there is a disregard for the voluntary restrictions that were put in. And when I say that there's a disregard for that, I say that very lightly. There's flight schools that we can't even get a hold of. And I held a meeting with them and requested that they all be there for a simple meeting to go over some of the basic issues on the voluntary noise abatement. And some didn't even show up. They spoke to each other, the ones who did show up in the room, like they've never seen this before. So there's a difference between, there's a lot of work put in, and it's very easy. Don't fly on Sundays, don't fly on holidays, keep it to, there's some patterns they can keep to. And there's a willful disregard for any of that. And the bottom line is, when you go over to these places, there doesn't appear to be anybody necessarily on site at these schools taking a leadership role or simply a role as some sort of boss, watching and controlling, making sure it seems pretty wide open. And you can walk over there at any time and say, hey, this, what's going on with these planes right now? And nobody seems to know anything.
And to that end, I have met with all the school at the airport. I even took flights with Epic to see the pattern. They had the voluntary restrictions in their review room where they have, I guess, before they take off on a flight, they have to have their review flights. They got it in the airplane. They got it on the bulletin board. They do the instructions to the pilots. But again, I cannot control them when they're up in the air 24/7. So.
Right.
Commissioner Hartman, still your time.
The 16th Street parking area, I mean, I don't know where we want to go with that. I know the county controls all access to the beaches and the beaches. I was not in favor of that, spending the $1 million for 10 parking spaces. I thought that was a bad use of money and time. I don't know how we would like to address that. I know there's concerns if you make it a ramp, there's concerns if you create parking in there. Collectively, do we want to have a discussion or a workshop and say, are we going to support it or not support it, or how do we want to go forward? Because I do think she's right. We are their elected officials. They are city residents.
Yeah.
We should take a position whether it's in favor of the county or not, and just make that known to the county. And I know that that's not a lot to do, but that's really basically all we can do because our hands are tied by certain regulations and stuff, so.
Yeah. Quick, if I may, quick question on your time for staff, because I had that on my list as well. Are there, there's things we have power over and there's things we have influence on, and there's things we have neither, frankly.
Right.
So on this one, what powers do we have? Are there any steps where it's going to become for this commission to make any decision, any approval of that process, or are we completely powerless and just trying to influence this?
Requires a site plan approval by the city, assuming it follows our normal development review process. That would normally not come before the city commission unless there was something unusual in that was going either outside of code. So haven't seen that yet, fully engineered, so it's hard to say for sure what, right now it could have, for example, a CCSL encroachment or something like that.
And even then, let's say that comes to either staff or commission, which it would just be staff, I guess, unless it was something crazy. We couldn't, or let me ask you the question. Could we say no to that based on the premise of this elected body doesn't support it? Or would it be one of those things we'd have to support as long as they check all the right boxes and met all the codes?
I think it would be the latter.
That's what I would figure,
just like any other site plan.
Yeah, okay.
I think the only thing that you have, Mayor, is the political influence.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I wanted to bat that around because that's what they had talked to me about before the meeting.
But
of,
I
hey,
think,
aren't you going to have to approve this? And yes-ish, like, just because we vote on something doesn't always mean we can legally vote no to it necessarily if they've done all that they could. So,
I think we'll call them, Mayor, just to see where they are in the process, and then if the commission wanted to schedule a meeting with the council representative and the county chair.
So here's what I would suggest if the commission is okay with it, is I would like to talk to county staff, particularly county chairman, and address this, but I'd like to do it with the backing of being able to say, this is where my commission's view is. I don't say we have to make a formal motion, but I'd like to just get your viewpoints here tonight so that I can approach the chair. They have talked to the chair, which also represents them as an elected official, and Commissioner or Councilman Robbins. So I'd like to approach Jeff and say, hey, we talked about it. This is our stance as a city. This is me trying to exert that political influence that we have, and asking you to do this based on our, us as a city. And this obviously impacts our residents, not just them, but others in that area. So with that, I will open it up just briefly, because we were ahead of schedule for once, but just briefly for your comments on this item, kind of yay, nay, or maybe even neutral. So I'll begin with you because you brought it up.
I don't see the benefit in it. I don't think spending the millions of dollars for 10 spaces is of benefit. But, like I said, it is their property and their rights. So I would certainly think that we could collectively collaborate on something better than that, between the two entities.
Okay.
So if they're willing to, and I don't know where they are in the process, how far they are into this and how much they've got involved in it. They're far?
I said I'll call them tomorrow. And
yeah, we'll talk to them.
Yeah. So if we could encourage, maybe
let's look at some
better dialogue. Yeah.
And I don't remember. I think this is before my time on this, because I remember it being talked about. I don't remember the other two options that the folks talked about.
Well, originally it was going to be a ramp And
I remember
we
that.
got a lot of feedback from the neighborhood about a ramp, so we kind of
Yeah.
put the stop to it.
Yeah.
And this, to me, felt like a little retaliation
I
that
remember,
way.
I was in the audience for it. I just, I
Yeah,
remember that
so-
part, yeah.
So, I think, given the makeups of the two different boards now, maybe it would just be, have a time to have a good conversation.
Okay.
So-
Commissioner McGurk, your comments on this one? Yay, nay?
Well, I think the money it would take to create 10 parking spots there can be, I know 100% we can get triple that. They prioritize lots, they deprioritize lots on the west side of A1A. I just think for the amount of money they're gonna spend, they can get a lot more bang for their buck. And I would like to, I'd like them to take a look at some other options. I think the other thing is there was a couple handicap parking spots that they can put in. I think that if they can put, there's a beach access there. There's no ramp, well, that's debatable. Because there was debate, it was an old ramp at one time. But right now, it's simply an access, and keeping it that way, and maybe adding a couple handicap spots if necessary, I think would be a better direction in using that money, that $1 million plus, for something else that would go a lot further, even if the parking's on the west side of A1A.
Okay. I'm gonna come this way, because then you're next after that. Or, Commissioner Evans, did you have any more after this item, or was that it?
That's it.
You sure? I mean, I can come back to you.
No,
All right.
I'm good.
So I'm gonna go this way, and then I'm gonna end on you, and then it'll be your time. So your comments on this item.
Gentlemen, I had brought this issue up before. It is very negatively impactful to Zone 2 Beachside. The residents will tell you so. I will briefly let you know that the county violates its own environmental mission statement. If we abide by it, we violate that mission statement to protect the high-hazard coastal dune system. It's a very small system. Yes, and there's very little of that dune left. What really is left there besides the natural plants is what you would call a ravine that was created by runoff and water. You cannot practically fit 10 spots, 5 spots, 2 spots. I think that one resident that's mostly affected might be reasonable to doing some type of feature like a walkover, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to county council. They have a tougher job than we do. But to go into that beautiful dune area, destroy the gopher tortoise mound, all the other negative impact, to put the worst, most dangerous thing is to put a queuing lane in the suicide lane on an A1A where people travel at 50 miles an hour plus, because people will try and do that. The negative impact, I could spend a half hour telling you that. I think we need to take a cautious position and maybe come to some reasonable compromise.
So I'm going to comment, and I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Clody for his time. He can comment on this item as well. I tend to agree. The economics, I'm both environmental and economics. $1 million for 10 spaces just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So it sounds like we have basically universal agreement. We'll hear from Commissioner Clody. With that knowledge, I'll approach county staff with our city manager. We'll figure out where they're at on the process, and I'll let county staff and our elected leaders know this is the city's position on this, and we respect their job. We respect what they do as elected leaders, of course, but this is our position as city leaders, and this is what we're going to fight for a little bit for our residents. And we'd like to see some other options put on the table collaboratively with the county. So we'll talk to the chairman and city and county leadership. Commissioner Clody, your time. You can comment on this item and then take it for whatever else you have.
On this particular item, which was one of the things on my list, I'm familiar with the plans. I've talked to the adjoiner a couple times. He's in the process of fighting the county legally and has basically stopped them from spending the money.
The resident.
This resident,
Okay,
Mr. Parker.
yeah.
Not spoke with his wife. As has been clearly said, $1 million for 10 parking spaces, when they could spend $250,000 for, I believe, 6 parking spaces and not take the dunes away. There is a valid compromise that they should jump at so they can get that money spent elsewhere. We've spoke at a couple meetings that I brought up that I'm very unhappy with the county, the way they cooperate with us on Beachside. This is just one example. It's a ruling that was 4-3 by the county under some questionable procedures. I think there would be no difficulty having them change their position. So I really think we should work at doing that. But it should be in accordance with the meeting we were supposed to schedule about how to spend our $250,000 that we asked them to meet to solve the beach problems. This is just part of the overall picture. It's a bad example as how they've run amok on this one particular property for reasons that I have absolutely no idea why. Commissioner McGuire pointed out, take this money, if we really want to add parking, put it on the west side of the road. There are lots available there. I'm not in favor of mass parking lots, but it's something we really have to discuss with the county, and this could be part of that. So, yes, talk. That's what I say. I will probably myself also talk on my behalf. So, the other items, we have a approaching problem that was caused by this commission in 2011. They passed a resolution.
Yeah.
Were you there? No, you weren't there.
When he said 2000, I was like, uh-oh.
They passed an ordinance saying you can't have any more pole signs, raised advertising signs out on highways and whatever. They said, fine, we'll give everybody 10 years, then they got to remove them. That was 10 years ago. Currently, there's, I believe I spoke with Brian, if I get the numbers wrong, don't correct me, but 172 of these signs still exist. There's absolutely no way the people are moving to remove them. There's not nearly enough people around to do it. Everyone would require site plan approval, and in their infinite wisdom, they included a line in there that said, if you don't want to do it, you have the right to go to the city commission. So we're looking forward to 170. Yeah, a line around the door. So,
Jason will have to get that.
speaking.
I just got sent a petition that I need to disseminate. Speaking of that.
Speaking with Brian, we should change those regulations. There's good and bad among getting rid of pole signs. Some areas, it's just not a good idea. What we discussed was extending the deadline for a year, and within that period of time, come up with revised guidelines. So I would like staff to look at that and come up with a definitive proposal as to what we want him to do. So that's that item.
Let me just pause there real quick. So I certainly support, and unless somebody speaks, I'll assume we all support, yeah, let's get ahead of this issue. Let's have staff added to an agenda, give us some idea of the scope of the problem. Sounds like it was summarized here, but talk about, you know, hey, here's kind of ABC, how we could approach it. You know, I have my thoughts, but yeah, let's get ahead of it before we have a line out the door of angry people saying the city hates small business because we're forcing them all to change their signs, you know, within the next few days. Sign prices are going to skyrocket. I mean, yeah, we gotta figure this out. That being said, they've had 10 years and have done nothing, so.
They're not going to. And what are we going to do?
Especially if we change the rule, yeah.
But that's, I'm glad to get the support to have them come up with something, not for next meeting, but before it gets to be.
Yeah, just sometime in the, you know, in the.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, yeah, we just need, well, I think what Commissioner Cloutier was asking was, let's bring it for extension of a year, so then we have the time to hash this thing out.
Well, we could conceivably do both, but we have to pass the extension before it
That's
comes
my,
due.
yeah, that was my point. In other words, you can bring that back to next meeting.
if.
to bring
if-
the extension back.
I don't think we're that pressed for time. I would like to see some recommendations as to where we're going to go.
Okay.
So,
I-
that's all.
Yeah, okay, I hear where you're going
Yeah,
now.
yeah, no, that's fine. I would just.
The,
Yeah.
At our last meeting, we had a 3-2 vote to turn down the staff proposal concerning how we calculate the 1,000 square feet on docks. I've looked at it. I voted no. I have sent the staff some proposed changes and ideas that would make this change good for both the people who need very long docks and the people who just want to make their backyard waterfront into an extra playground. So I would ask that that be reconsidered.
So I think on that, Carrie, correct me for rules here, but do we need a motion to reconsider on that?
Yep, sounds like he just did a motion to reconsider ordinance number related to docks.
All right,
You don't
can I
have to
get-
know the ordinance number.
Can I get a second on that motion?
Second. Well,
All
am
right.
I allowed to second? I
Yes,
can't
I think anyone can second, right? Just the motion maker has to be from the prevailing side, right?
I believe so. All right, yes, okay.
We have two
Do we have to
parliamentarians.
set a date at this point?
So, the part I don't know is if we're gonna put it back on an agenda and the title is gonna change, we may need to discuss what you want to see, or if Brian and I can work out what it should be. There's a little bit of uncertainty about what's going, it's an ordinance, 2 readings, and if the title's changing, that's my concern, so. Let me
don't
work
know.
with Brian on that.
I have met with Brian, and I've also sent him some correspondence on it as to the way we can address it.
All right, so, I mean, to me, we're getting it back on the agenda. We'll let staff figure out if it needs to be another first and second, or if we can bring it back up. Maybe we just bring it back up for discussion, and then you all can make that decision. We don't have to figure this out tomorrow. I don't think I didn't hear anybody's like, it's urgent for right this second, but we would like to get it resolved, so.
Well, we have a motion and a second, we need to vote, right?
Yeah,
We did that.
I'm going for it. I
Okay.
just wanted to-
Do we
so-
have a second?
Yeah, we got a second. We got a
Okay.
motion, we have a second.
The motion is to reconsider, though.
The
Yes.
motion is to reconsider, so we're gonna
Reconsider.
figure it out. All right, motion to reconsider, we had a second. City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Shouldn't we have a discussion before we vote?
This is just to reconsider it. This isn't the
This is
actual
to literally
item.
have, yeah, so no, really, it's not.
No.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, so this basically opens the item back up. Now, we're not gonna debate and decide it tonight. I don't
No.
have anything in front of me. I don't have what Commissioner Colodey's talking about. So now the question is, when do we consider this?
So I think next we would need a motion for staff to bring back the
Okay.
ordinance in same form, revised form, some sort of,
I make a motion to table, right?
you want to bring it back on an agenda is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, bring it back.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so if we table it,
You want not table it, but you wanna extend the deadline, right?
Yeah.
No,
Because
Table
technically it's
puts
back
it off
open.
indefinitely.
Yeah. Technically, it's as if
well,
we were back
until
to
you-
last
Until you
meeting.
bring it off the table, so that would give staff time to talk about it and come up with the.
Oh, and when to bring it back?
when
I
to
see what you're
revise it,
saying.
and then at any
Okay.
commission meeting, you could just make a motion to take it off the table.
And make a
So we-
date to put it on an agenda.
Commissioner Hartman, am I hearing a motion? Can I get a motion?
I mean, unless I'm,
No, I like
I
what
like-
you're
I like
going,
where you're
but
going
I
with it.
think we may need a discussion on what commission consensus would be. We know what one commissioner has ideas about how to change it, but how about a motion to table along with set it on an agenda item for discussion as to what it is? How do you feel about that, Brian?
well, if I motion to table and then we take it off the table at some point in the future, then then the ordinance would become before us again, and we could discuss it at that time after we've been briefed. And
I'm
with
just
it-
concerned that we're going to put something on the table that does, or I shouldn't use the word table. That, when you guys bring it off the table, will we have a draft that will have support? So I'm just trying to make sure we have an opportunity to discuss what it should look like when it does come back? Because it doesn't sound like it should come back in the same form, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah, so my thought is, let's table it. Let me share what, my concerns were, my thoughts were with, with staff. Commissioner Colodi can do the same. Not to leave out Vice Mayor, sounds like he's remaining opposed though to it in any form, so, but if he wants to provide input, certainly he can. And then, staff can, commissioners to my left had approved it in previous form, assuming this is some level of compromise. Hopefully there's still support there, or maybe there's not, I don't know, but, I would say that's the starting point, is let Commissioner Colodi and I talk to staff about our thoughts, where we were, understand, what his thoughts are, and then staff can say whether they want to bring it back in whatever form, so.
Okay, so we'll go with Commissioner Hartman's plan, a motion to table.
Table it for now.
I'll second that.
Motion to table
Yeah.
the square
Second.
footage on the docks.
Okay. And I had a second from from Commissioner Colodi. City Clerk, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Motion to table, yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that got way more complicated.
One more
still your
thing.
time. Yep.
I believe it was last weekend, there was a film crew that had gotten permission to work on the beach and film something or other. And as part of that, they occupied the Esther Street parking lot for a morning, and everybody was chased off who wanted to go there. I don't think we have a policy on this. I don't want to discourage filmmaking, because I think eventually it's to our betterment, but I don't think that we should bear any expenses. I think that we should be reimbursed for lost revenue and parking there or wherever they happen to go. I don't think, if I'm correct, we have to make a whole ordinance out of this. Can't the staff just come up with some general guidelines, bring it up to us for discussion?
This is for use of city parking lots?
City parking, city facilities, and excluding the public from use of them.
We already have something that could apply, right?
Not for this use, but just, Commissioner, and I think I mentioned to you, it just happened in this particular case that they came in the morning before the time that we actually generating revenue. So just to, but I don't think we have a clear policy if somebody wants to use the parking lot. I mean, we have some special events, they want to use the parking lot, especially when they have 5K, or the film that this is probably the second or third time that they actually come to New Smyrna. We'll come up with a policy.
Okay, I would appreciate it. There's no hurry on that also. But I'm familiar with how some of these companies work. They knew very well we didn't have a policy, so they just showed up.
If I can make a real brief comment. At one point, there was a question whether or not we should have a film commission at the county level who would handle this and be the liaison between the county and the cities. I think the county decided not to. I think maybe a film commissioner would be, maybe that's something we can bring up again at some point to the county council members, because I know we are starting to pick up on these kinds of issues, and that liaison is a critical person to bridge the link between the county, city, and permits. Just an idea.
And if I might add, I think this should have come before the commission for approval, at least to the leisure board. Since we have no arts and film board, it should have come to us for approval. We did have a lot of complaints. And we also had complaints on Canal when they did a movie there. I mean, trying to create some order.
In this particular one, the impact was not like the one on Canal Street where they're gonna shut the whole street. This is just the parking lot at 5 o'clock in the morning for a couple of hours. So we didn't see any major impacts, so that's why we authorized it.
Yeah, I'd also add in that particular case, it was some local, literally residents that were involved, but also a lot of external crew, acting staff that had come in, thousands of dollars of economic impact to the good in our local economy that is still trying to recover from COVID in many ways. So there are positive. We oftentimes just hear the negatives. You don't get a phone call from the restaurant that says, "Hey, thanks, I just had a great day of sales and was able to tip out on my employees that have been really hurting the past 6 months really well because we had this film crew come in." So we don't get those calls, but those things do exist as well as offsets. But I am okay with getting some order to this if it does become recurring.
Yeah, I don't want to discourage it.
Yeah. Okay, is that it? You finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I just had a couple of things. A lot of things were already touched on. So I have an action item that I'm going to follow up with Khaled on to county leadership and staff to talk about the 16th Street parking lot, and we'll talk about them. The airport, Commissioner McGurk and others talked about it. The one thing I have said to residents in that area, and it's tough because folks don't understand, and so we get the folks that stand before us today. But everything we just talked about, even that noise abatement program, people often forget the V. It is a voluntary noise abatement program. I wish and hope and ask and request and apply pressure that as good neighbors and citizens and corporate partners that they abide by a voluntary noise abatement program. But it is voluntary, and what that means is we don't control FAA controlled airspace. And I will tell you, in my experience at the university I worked in, we ran the largest flight operation around here by miles, and the impact of one, they run on the numbers, just like your business, just like everybody else's business. They run on numbers, and if they have one bad weather day, our flight school would double up activities on the weekend to make up for the bad weather day. And so I'm sure that's what's happening here is, yes, that all sounds great when you pencil it out sitting in a meeting, and then you get halfway through the month and you've been hit by 5 bad weather days, which represents hundreds of thousands of lost revenue. You still got people on payroll, you still got mechanics, you still got leases to pay for these planes. And so, yeah, they probably rally some people on Sundays to, if it's a nice flying day, to get the time in. I'm not excusing the activity. I'm just saying that that's probably what's practically happening. And that is what it is. I wish I had an answer, but my understanding from staff is we don't control FAA-controlled airspace. We can't say, don't fly there or don't fly there at these times because it is FAA-controlled airspace. I may be completely wrong about that, but that's my understanding. I'll come to you in 1 second.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear your perspective. It's also, and I know the public's not here, and I didn't want to get into a back and forth at the time, but it's also important to remember that, these promised workshops that we heard about earlier, they weren't promised by me. I never heard about them. I don't know where that came from.
It could be the airport advisory board, and I don't know, I'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know who's promising that we were going to have a workshop, but that was never on our schedule. You can review every public document, you can review every email. Like I've never promised a workshop. If we do it, we try to keep a word on that kind of stuff, mainly because I don't want things like that happening. So, so there's other issues at play sometimes when you hear things spoken about. So. But yeah, my understanding is it's a voluntary noise abatement program. I wish people would step up to the plate. I'm going to try, again, there's things we can influence, there's things we have power over, and there's things we're powerless about. Yeah, I don't know where this one falls, but so anyway, I'm curious your perspective though. You've been
Yeah, real briefly, the Sunday issue, I agree, there's no, that is an issue where they have bad weather days. But their flight patterns, they completely disregard the most important part of the noise abatement or voluntary noise abatement was some of their flight patterns. Very easily done. You have a bunch of young kids who are not clearly being told what to do, and they're simply disregarding it. And there is things we can do. And to get into the numbers, the response from the community was, it's essentially a free airport. Doesn't have to be. We can put landing fees. Now, if you want to really stress the schools and stress these people, we can get into that whole issue, which they don't want to touch on. Because the reality of it is, everything, that airport is wide open and very much free. So if they want to, that card is there to play.
Good to
We
know.
can't control FAA, but we can create landing fees.
Good to know. The last thing I'll come to you in 1 second. The last thing I'd say on the patterns, again, I'm not a pilot, but I worked in an aviation, dominated school for 10 years, so I did learn a thing or two. Because I was calling these people when they were missing their budget numbers, and so I heard every excuse in the book about why they missed their numbers. Another thing I learned is with flight patterns, a lot of that's relegated on, first of all, if you look at our actual airspace that's available over Volusia County, which I studied these maps, you got bombing ranges to one side, you got the coast to the other side that small planes can't go to, they don't go too far off the coast. You got restrictions to the south with the airspace. So we actually have some of the tightest and busiest airspace around because of all the flight training that takes place, and you got all these these boxes around, and we really don't have even a 360 degree. We only have about 180 because of this coastline over here. So when you layer onto that, a coastal breeze, there can be flight patterns that are relegated based on, you got to make an approach at this based on landing on that runway in a one-engine plane. You got to hit it at this angle, and that's FAA direction tell you to do that versus, picking out a house and saying, let me do a strafing run. Like that's just not happening. I don't believe. But Vice Mayor, you had a comment.
Yes, over the years, I've had to call that tower, the cab, and they don't want to talk to anybody. The student pilots are flying below minimums, which is a violation of FAA rules. They're not flying the patterns. They're doing the shortcuts because, honestly, a young student, he's scared. He wants to get back to that runway. So he's not flying the rectangular pattern that he should be. And there is noise. We joke, wherever we move to, there's a traffic pattern from an airport, which is okay. I know that for me. But for others, it's still a big problem. I have 2 flight schools there, I think, with a lot of students. I agree. I had brought it up several years ago that we should charge fees for operations. For every operation that happens, get cameras and tail numbers and charge them. I mean, it's impact to our city. It's a good impact, but it also has a negative impact.
Both positive and negative, that's
Yeah.
right. As long as we always, that we can.
But I wish that we could have a dialogue with the FAA. They're not totally autonomous. It's their airspace above us, but shouldn't we have some say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a tougher
Yeah,
hill to climb.
I agree.
Last thing I was going to say, just to kind of polish off all the resident comments, one young lady spoke about pickleball courts. That's not a plant. I've never met that person, I promise you.
Sure.
I know you were all thinking about it.
I heard that at lunch.
Because I have been talking about pickleball courts.
I heard you're pretty good.
But I have never, thank you, I appreciate that. But I've never met her, but her comments are well made. I will just leave it at that. So I encourage you all, talk to more people that play the sport, learn about the sport, the economic impact of the sport. It was they just had the first 2 nationally televised gold medal matches down in Naples is becoming the pickleball capital of the world because they were early adopters of this with the county partner. And they just had CBS literally broadcast a couple of pickleball matches live, first ever, record breaking. And what's super cool is, though it's still such an infant sport, that there were people playing in those matches that I saw on CBS that I had gotten the chance to meet, at local pickleball courts. So it's like this really cool moment in the sport. So I'd still love to see us be a little more aggressive on that. So that was it for my things. Thank you all for your comments on those things. City manager report.
I guess you have the report before you. The only thing is I just want to point out quickly on the American Rescue Plan. Until today, we don't have a clear guidance and requirement on it. However, as I mentioned in my report, I have created a small committee from directors. We have compiled a list of projects, whether they are eligible or not, but have the list prepared. So when they have the guidelines established, it'll be easy for us to go through the list and say, well, if this is eligible, yes. And then what you could do is we could rank the projects and give them to the commission for their final blessing. So, any questions?
Any questions on the city manager's report? Go ahead.
I have one, but it's directed more at Brian with the development activity report. And I believe I heard the same comment at the P and Z, but what does applicant to resubmit mean?
That means when they've submitted an initial application, staff's reviewed it, returned comments. We are waiting for them to return a submittal, hence the term resubmittal.
Do they have time restraints on those?
Sometimes they do, depends on what the application is. There are expirations.
Because that's what most all of them say is.
So that's good for us, that we've
Right.
returned the kind of balls back in their court to revise. Sometimes the comments are significant and they have to, rethink their whole development plan.
Okay. That's all I had.
All right, any other questions of the city manager? If not, city clerk report.
No report.
Actually, just real quick, so it's the next meeting that we're having the joint?
Yes, that's correct, on May 11th.
Okay, so May 11th, Commission, we previously talked about this, but just so no one is surprised, so May 11th is the Youth Council is wrapping up their whole thing. They've been judiciously working. They're coming to an end. Many of them are actually graduating out as well. They've been with us now for a while. They've had great success on this project. I know they're excited to present their results to you. And what we had talked about before was, and it gave them a lot of energy, is like last time, we were going to have them join us at that meeting, not just to stand in front of us and present so we can nod, but to actually have them participate alongside us at the beginning of the meeting, and kind of co-chair the meeting through the first few items. And so each of you will have a student here with you. We'll go through the first few items and then we'll dismiss them. So that will be happening at our next meeting. Thank you. City Attorney's report.
No report tonight.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.